I had merely raised a few small centipedes, yet I managed to startle a well-traveled and knowledgeable elderly man. These seemingly ordinary little creatures were, in fact, fearsome venomous organisms. What astonished the elderly man even more was that I not only knew their incubation periods but was also familiar with their reproductive patterns. Upon hearing this, the old man became extremely excited. He declared that he would teach me all his martial arts and even intended to marry off his exceptionally talented daughter to me. Just a few years ago, I was a live streamer with millions of followers, primarily broadcasting interactions with venomous creatures and insects. However, the turning point in my life came from a venomous snake. To meet my fans' requests, I had specifically kept the world's most dangerous black mamba in my home. Yet, an accident caused me to lose my life to its deadly fangs. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself inexplicably in a Taoist temple. One day, a group of people arrived at the Taoist temple, requesting to stay overnight to avoid the storm. Seeing their polite demeanor, which didn't suggest they were bad people, I gradually let down my guard and told them that I, too, had only moved here a few years ago. As I spoke, I pointed to the room behind me. Aside from this room, you can stay in any of the others. The elderly man leading the group first bowed in thanks, then instructed his disciples not to approach that particular room. Observing their uniform attire, I guessed they might be from the same family. Although I was curious about their identities, I had more pressing matters to attend to at the moment. I stepped into the room, a joyful expression on my face. "Kids, it's time to eat," I said, happily opening a clay jar. Inside, a spider opened its mouth, as if begging me for food. This was a local species, capable of growing up to 20 centimeters, a large venomous spider. Due to its unique coloration, reminiscent of a black tiger, people called it the Black Earth Tiger. Smiling, I handed it a cricket. When this little guy first arrived, it was only the size of a fingernail, but after 2 molts, it had grown this big. I felt an immense sense of satisfaction. After feeding the Black Earth Tiger, I walked over to the herb rack and pulled open one of the drawers. In the next moment, a bewangling cave gecko appeared before me. This was another local creature, its most striking features being the intricate patterns on its body and tail. In my previous life, due to a lack of funds or the species' rarity, I had never been able to acquire one. But to my surprise, they were abundant here. Raising them had now become one of my greatest joys. Just then, the elderly man suddenly entered my room. I quickly shut the drawer, and upon opening the door, I learned that he had come to invite me to dinner as a token of gratitude for letting them stay. What's more, the meal featured delicious venison. I was so thrilled that I was momentarily speechless. After all, for years, my meals had consisted of nothing but snakes and lizards, which I had long grown tired of. Naturally, I gladly accepted the old man's invitation. Arriving in the courtyard and seeing the venison on the grill, I couldn't help but drool. At that moment, the elder beside me said, "The meat needs to roast a bit longer to be fully cooked." Then he asked, "Young warrior, how old are you this year? Have you always lived alone deep in the mountains?" I nodded. "Around 14 or 15, I think." Hearing my response, the elder looked puzzled. Seeing his confusion, I had no choice but to explain that I had hit my head as a child and couldn't remember clearly, which managed to brush off the question. Just then, another white-haired elder brought over the cooked venison. "Young warrior, you look very hungry. Please eat first." Without a second thought, I took the venison and began devouring it in big bites. This was what humans were meant to eat. It was absolutely delicious. Moments later, the elder directly revealed their purpose. "We are searching for a poisonous creature, a centipede with blue markings on its body. Young warrior, have you seen it?" Hearing the words, "poisonous creature," my interest was immediately piqued. "How big?" When I learned it was large enough to swallow me whole in one bite, I gaped in astonishment. Can centipedes really grow that big? I know I've returned to an ancient era from hundreds of years ago, but could this place be an entirely different world? The white-haired elder reassured me, "Don't worry, we are here to capture it." Only then did I realize, so you're in the same line of work. Are you planning to catch it and raise it? The white-haired elder burst into laughter at my question. Raising it? That does sound amusing. But no, we need it for medicinal purposes. I was somewhat puzzled. Can centipedes really be used as medicinal ingredients? The elder explained, "My granddaughter is gravely ill, and only the inner core of the blue spot centipede can save her life." Hearing this, I couldn't help but sigh. The boundless love of family. Although this is cruel for the centipede, they did share their venison with me, so why not help them? I then began, that centipede. Before I could finish, the elder asked excitedly if I had seen it. I quickly shook my head and denied it. Although I don't know exactly what a blue spot centipede looks like, I have a good idea of where it might live. In my previous life, I was the most famous poisonous creature streamer on the entire internet, with knowledge far surpassing that of ordinary people. Among approximately 8.7 million species, around 20,000 are poisonous, and centipedes are one of them. Any knowledge related to poisonous creatures is deeply engraved in my mind. With confidence, I told them, I already know where the centipede is. The two elders, shocked, immediately asked, where? To ensure no mistakes, I asked them about the areas they had already searched. From their response, I learned they had looked along the northern riverbank and the eastern dense forest during the day. This confirmed my suspicions even further. Of course, you couldn't find it searching like that. I then began to explain, centipedes belong to the multi-legged arthropods and are cold-blooded animals. They need to maintain specific temperature and humidity levels, so they only operate within their territory. Interestingly, unlike most insects with waterproof membranes, centipedes have weaker waterproofing and rely on breathing pores in their skin, making them avoid overly damp places. However, they also can't stay away from water sources for too long. So, the blue spot centipede you're looking for definitely wouldn't live under fallen trees in dense forests or under rocks by the riverbank, as those places wouldn't suit its massive body. The two elders nodded, half understanding. Then where exactly is the blue spot centipede? If you can tell us, we will surely reward you handsomely. I gave a slight smile and pointed in a direction. Go to the Rocky Mountain in the west. If I'm not mistaken, that centipede will be hiding under the warm stones during the day and will come out to move around at night. A few days later, the elder led his disciples to the Rocky Mountain. However, after searching high and low, they couldn't find even a trace of the centipede. During a break, the disciples began murmuring among themselves. Why hasn't that damned centipede shown up yet? Could it be that the young warrior deceived us? Thinking about Hua Yin, the most outstanding daughter in Tang clan history, the elder's face darkened with a hint of despair. Could it be that the heavens have really forsaken us? At that moment, the search team led by the white-haired elder also returned empty-handed. Hua Yin can only hold on for 3 more months at most. I wonder if we'll find it in time. Then, the elder suggested, why don't we search to the south tomorrow? There's no trace of it here. The white-haired elder nodded in agreement but suddenly burst into laughter. Oh, that's it. Why did it take me this long to realize? That young warrior was right, the blue spot centipede must be here. The elder looked confused. Father, what have you discovered? The white-haired elder explained, not only is there no trace or scent of it here, but there are also no territorial markings from other animals. Doesn't this mean? Before he could finish, the elder suddenly understood. In other words, the other animals were either scared away or eaten by some powerful creature. The white-haired elder patted his shoulder. Exactly. So, the blue spot centipede must be here. However, just as he finished speaking, the ground suddenly began to quake violently. Before anyone could react, a massive claw emerged from the earth. In the next moment, a colossal blue spot centipede appeared before them. At the same time, the thunderous noise from the valley reached my ears. I couldn't help but wonder, just how big is that centipede to cause such a commotion? On the other side, under the leadership of the two elders, the blue spot centipede was finally defeated. As they held the harvested centipede inner core, everyone was overjoyed. Hua Yin can be saved now. The elder stepped forward and said, Father, please take the disciples back to Sichuan first. I have one more task to complete. The white-haired elder nodded solemnly. I almost forgot about that. You must repay that young warrior properly, and at all costs, ensure he becomes an honored guest of ours. Meanwhile, I was being tormented by 3 centipede larvae, utterly overwhelmed. Who would have thought that overnight, I'd become the father of the blue spot centipede? It turned out that, after learning of the colossal centipede's existence, I had, out of curiosity, located its lair during the night. While I didn't encounter the live centipede, I did find 3 centipede eggs. I hid them under my pillow, and when I woke the next morning, they had all hatched. What troubled me even more was that they seemed unwilling to leave my side for even a moment. At that moment, I suddenly came up with an idea. Let's go take a bath now. Shortly after, the elder returned to the Taoist temple. After calling out a few times with no response, he entered my room. Seeing the room filled with herbs and jars, he assumed I was skilled in medicine. But he quickly realized something was amiss. Entering someone else's room uninvited is terribly rude. Just as he was about to leave, a strange noise caught his attention. He opened a jar and immediately widened his eyes in terror. Curiosity got the better of him, and he began inspecting other medicine boxes and jars. Seeing the variety of poisonous creatures, he was utterly stunned. I never expected that not only does he raise poisonous creatures, but he also breeds them. Even the Tang clan, masters of poison, only manage poisonous creatures. They've never considered breeding them. I thought saving my daughter's life was destiny, but now it seems that the young warrior is the true fortune we've encountered. At that moment, my voice broke his train of thought. Upon seeing me, he hurriedly stepped forward, indicating he had something to say. But before he could speak, a loud bang erupted from the doorway. As the smoke cleared, a disfigured man appeared before us. The elder immediately pushed me aside as the man launched an attack. Struggling to block the strike, the already injured elder was quickly overwhelmed and lost his ability to fight. He realized, to his horror, that the intruder was a master on par with his father. The man grabbed me with one hand and laughed maniacally. I heard someone from the Tang clan was here. I didn't expect it to be the son of the myriad poison's divine sovereign. The elder looked confused. Senior, who are you? If you know my father, why are you attacking us? The man sneered. Look at my face and my red fist. Don't you understand? It was your father who made me like this. A name immediately surfaced in the elder's mind. Bloodhand Rakshasa, Takunyang. Wasn't he struck by his father's poisonous palm and thrown off a cliff? How could he still be alive? Realizing the dire situation, the elder desperately pleaded with Takunyang to spare me, even offering his own life in exchange. Takunyang coldly refused. Anyone associated with the Tang clan, I won't let a single one go. The elder clenched his teeth in hatred but was powerless. As Takunyang's grip tightened around my neck, my vision blurred, and my consciousness began to fade. At the critical moment, 3 centipede larvae suddenly burst out from my clothes and sank their fangs into Takunyang with all their might. Takunyang sneered dismissively, "Tiny centipedes, do you think this can hurt me?" However, as soon as he finished speaking, blood spurted from his mouth. His body trembled, weakened, and eventually collapsed lifelessly to the ground. Witnessing this scene, I was utterly stunned. He just died like that? The elder beside me was even more astonished. After a moment, he exclaimed, "This young warrior is not merely an honored guest but must become a member of our Tang clan." A few days later, the elder's injuries began to improve. Upon waking, the first thing he did was express his gratitude to me, then revealed that he was a member of the martial world. This immediately piqued my curiosity. "Are you one of those martial arts experts who can fly around?" The elder laughed and replied, "Only a very few can achieve that." Hearing this, I suddenly came to a realization. So this really is a different world. Otherwise, how could there be house-sized centipedes and people who can fly? Then, the elder continued, "Although I appear quite miserable now, I will definitely repay you in the future. Let me formally introduce myself. I am Tang San, the head of the Tang clan in Sichuan." I responded, "I am Wei Sacheon." However, he seemed more interested in the poisonous creatures I carried than in my name. When he learned that they were the larvae of the blue spot centipede, Tang San suddenly sat up straight. "Where did they come from? How did you tame them? And when I was waiting for you, I noticed many poisonous creatures in your room. Are those also raised by you?" So, I explained the entire sequence of events to him. The well-informed Tang San was astonished after hearing it. "Are you saying that not only can you raise eggs, but you can also predict their hatching time and even understand their breeding patterns?" Then, I took out 2 poisonous creatures and explained, "This is an ordinary striped lizard. They have yellow stripes on their bodies and white stripes on their tails. If you breed them with the same species that only have white stripes on their tails, the offspring will have both colors." Tang San was utterly incredulous. Is this really something humans can influence? At this point, he swallowed hard, and a bold idea sparked in his mind. If we breed poisonous creatures with even stronger toxicity, could we cultivate species with even more potent poison? I nodded affirmatively. As long as we know which poisonous creature has stronger toxicity, theoretically, it's possible. Hearing this, Tang San was overjoyed. "Young warrior, join our Tang clan. If you become one of us, I will teach you all our martial arts and provide you with anything you desire. I believe you can cultivate creatures even more powerful than the 10 great poisonous creatures of the Central Plains. If that's not enough, I can even marry my stunning daughter to you." At this, I hurriedly interrupted him. Tang San chuckled smugly. "Though you're still young, you're a man, after all. It seems Huayin has really done us a great service this time." However, I told him firmly, "I'm not interested in women. You just mentioned the 10 great poisonous creatures of the Central Plains. Are they more powerful than the blue spot centipede?" Tang San confidently replied, "Though the blue spot centipede is formidable, it's just a low-level poisonous creature and cannot compare to the 10 great poisonous creatures of the Central Plains. Among them are scorpions the size of houses and golden frogs that shine like gold. Whatever you imagine, they far exceed your understanding." Hearing this, my eyes lit up. "Master Tang, may I join the Tang clan?" 2 days later, the disciples were shocked to learn that Bloodhand Rakshasa Takunyang had reappeared in the martial world. It said his strength had reached the same level as the previous patriarch. Since the patriarch sent him to the underworld, does that mean you've also reached the realm of 10,000 poisons? Tang San shook his head and denied it. Takunyang met his end at the hands of the young warrior. Hearing this, the disciples knelt before me in disbelief. "Are you perhaps an immortal master who has regained their youth?" Tang San smiled faintly. "Young warrior, it seems there's been a misunderstanding. Why don't you show them?" At that, I pulled open my collar, revealing the 3 blue spot centipede larvae to the astonished crowd. Upon learning that these were blue spot centipede larvae, the disciples were stunned. We never expected the young warrior to possess such talent at such a young age. At that moment, Tang San suddenly spoke up. We need to set off now, any later, and it'll be too late. I was a bit puzzled. Master Tang, is there something else you're searching for? Tang San explained to me that Bloodhand Rakshasa Tak Enyang's martial art, the Bloodhand Poison Claw, required human blood and bone marrow to enhance its power, an extremely sinister martial art. Hearing this, my face turned pale. This world actually has such insane martial arts. Tang San then expressed his concerns. If Tak Enyang left behind a manual or disciples, the consequences would be unimaginable. We must eliminate this threat completely and ensure such a cruel martial art doesn't continue to harm the world. After saying this, he turned his gaze to me. Young warrior, you're quite familiar with the terrain here, right? Could you help us? I fell into contemplation. Joining the Tang clan means having a stable livelihood. As an intern, isn't it my duty to get to know my superiors and colleagues? With this thought, I forced a smile. Since it's about saving lives, of course, I'll help. In the following days, we searched all the villages near the Taoist temple for traces of Tak Enyang but found nothing. Tang San was perplexed. Tak Enyang managed to arrive in such a short time. Could it be that he doesn't live nearby? I was puzzled as well. How could there not be a single trace? But as I recalled what Tak Enyang had said at the time, an idea suddenly struck me. I quickly shared my hypothesis with Tang San. At that time, Tak Enyang said, I heard someone from the Tang clan came here, which means he got the information from someone else. So, if we confirm where the Tang clan passed through and use his physical description to search, wouldn't we be able to find clues? Tang San's expression brightened with understanding. He immediately gave the order for us to head to the Li ethnic village. However, when we arrived at the village, we found it much quieter than before, and the villagers appeared sickly. At that moment, an aged voice called out, "Why have you come here?" We followed the voice and saw a few people staring at us coldly. Seeing this, Tang San politely introduced himself and explained our purpose. However, the elder merely gave a few perfunctory responses before directly ordering us to leave. Just then, a young girl suddenly collapsed. The elder hurriedly held her in his arms, exclaiming, "Me Jean, even you've caught this strange plague? You're the only family I have left." Hearing this, Tang San immediately said, "Elder, I know some medicine. Let me take a look." Realizing his granddaughter had a chance of being saved, the elder reluctantly revealed the truth. It turned out that, not long ago, a strange plague had spread through the village, causing many children to die one after another and even bringing down the once healthy young adults. After explaining, he invited us into his home. To my surprise, I had thought the Tang clan was merely a poison-using assassination organization, but they also excelled in medical skills. Tang San then channeled some inner chi into the young girl, and her condition finally stabilized. However, he found it odd. This child has an irregular pulse. Is it congenital heart weakness? The elder's face was full of sorrow. It's not just my granddaughter, others also show similar symptoms. I tried to persuade you to leave at the village entrance so you wouldn't get involved. After the misunderstanding was cleared up, Tang San instructed the elder to gather the villagers and have them try the medicine. The elder was so grateful that he was moved to tears. Soon, night fell, and the disciples inquired about the condition of the patients. Tang San told them, although some people feel weak all over or have swollen eyes, and others have irregular pulses or low fevers, those in severe condition all have heart issues. After saying this, he asked about my status. A disciple replied, "The young warrior has gone to his room to rest after taking care of the patients for a long time." Tang San hadn't expected me to work so hard and decided to check on me before resting himself. However, when he opened the door to my room, his expression changed drastically. He quickly stepped forward and, without a word, slapped me across the face. I woke up with a start, staring at him in confusion. "Master Tang, what's wrong with you?" Tang San first apologized to me and then explained, "It was just to kill the bug on your face." It turned out that after I had fallen asleep, he had specifically come to check on me but noticed a bug crawling on my face. Knowing full well that this village had many dangerous insects, Tang San didn't hesitate to strike. After explaining, he handed me the dead bug to examine. My heart sank. How did this thing get here? At that moment, something occurred to me, and I asked Tang San, "Are all the severely ill patients experiencing irregular pulses?" After receiving a positive response, I immediately voiced my hypothesis. The culprit behind this village's strange plague is very likely this insect. Time for a science lesson. Everyone, take out your notebooks. This insect is called a kissing bug. They usually act while humans are asleep and prefer to feed on blood around the eyes and lips. What's more impressive is that they're even quieter than mosquitoes when feeding, which is why they're also called vampire bugs or assassin bugs. Although they aren't poisonous themselves, their bodies are full of parasites. Once bitten, a person can get infected, leading to diseases like Chagas disease or trypanosomiasis. They rank as the 7th deadliest creatures in terms of human fatality numbers. To further confirm my hypothesis, I asked the village chief, do the dogs in the village exhibit similar symptoms? The chief nodded in confirmation. While we had identified the cause, figuring out how to treat it left me stumped. Tang Kielsan, however, displayed a confident smile. Young warrior, don't forget, we are the Tang clan of Sichuan. He then began recounting the glorious history of the Tang clan. In the past, there was something in the martial world called poisonous goo. These were insects bred by the most sinister individuals in the Central Plains. Those people would find ways to make others swallow the goo insects, causing them periodic suffering or allowing the culprits to control them at will. Although these goo were highly dangerous and many martial experts perished because of them, it was our Sichuan Tang clan that eventually developed the antidote capable of expelling or killing the goo insects inside the human body. So, these invisible parasites are nothing to us. Saying this, he took out a fist-sized pill. This is the curse-melting orb. Just a small dose, and the disease is guaranteed to be cured. He then turned to the village chief. Elder, don't worry, your village will be saved. Eventually, after the villagers took the curse-melting orb, the entire village gradually regained its vitality. As a gesture of gratitude, the villagers warmly hosted us. At the banquet, Tang Kielsan deliberately attributed all the credit to me. If it weren't for you identifying the cause, this strange plague wouldn't have been cured so quickly. Seeing everyone treating me like a hero, Tang Kielsan felt genuinely happy for me in his heart. Moments later, the village chief quietly spoke to Tang Kielsan. Weren't you previously looking for a village where people had gone missing? To repay your kindness, I sent someone to investigate. From a woman who married into our village, I heard some strange things. In her natal village, people have been disappearing one after another for the past few years. Hearing this, Tang Kielsan was startled and immediately asked the village chief for the location of that village. Soon, Tang Kielsan led the group to the village. However, what greeted them was an overwhelming stench of decay. Tang Kielsan's face turned pale as he took in the scene before him. Piles of broken skeletons lay ahead, and a layer of miasma lingered in the air. This place is horrifying. There's even corpse poison here. Even more shocking was the sight of an unidentified creature feeding in the area where the corpse poison was the thickest. Witnessing this, a disciple picked up a stone and threw it at the creature. However, not only did the stone miss, but it also enraged the creature. Before anyone could react, the creature suddenly flew into the air, flapping its wings and releasing a cloud of black mist. I was shocked to see that the skeletons touched by the black mist all melted away. Tang Kielsan quickly covered my nose and signaled everyone to flee immediately, as he had already recognized the creature. Zhenyao, ranked first among the top 10 poisons of the Central Plains. After successfully escaping the clutches of the Zhenyao, Tang Kielsan explained to us that bird had a wingspan of 5 feet, a bronze-colored beak, purple feathers, and a golden crest on its head, resembling an emperor. The most terrifying thing is that when it flaps its wings, everything around it succumbs to poison and death. This is the pinnacle of the top 10 poisons, known as the Emperor of Poisons, the Zhenyao. Hearing this, my eyes lit up with excitement. This is practically a mobile bioweapon. Compared to it, poisonous insects and snakes on Earth are child's play. Tang Kielsan continued, legend has it that they only eat the brains of poisonous snakes, so the Zhenyao must have been attracted by snakes infected with corpse poison. I asked, are these birds common? Tang Kielsan shook his head. Some people go their entire lives without seeing one. It's a once-in-a-century poisonous creature. Hearing this, a bold idea popped into my mind. Then can we catch it? As soon as I said this, the disciples were all stunned. Even Tang Kielsan thought I was being unrealistic. The Zhenyao is so toxic. Are you sure you can catch it, young warrior? At this point, he suddenly changed his tone. Since you're interested in the 10 great venomous creatures, young warrior, I do have a solution. The poison arts of our Sichuan Tang clan, when cultivated to the peak, can achieve a state of immunity to all poisons. By then, you should be able to withstand the Zhenyao's toxin. Then, he showed a troubled expression. However, we cannot pass down our family's martial arts to outsiders. Even if I want to help you, as the head of the clan, I cannot violate the sect rules. I immediately felt uneasy. If I become part of the Tang clan, can I learn it? As long as I master the body immune to all poisons, I'll be able to resist the Zhenyao's toxin. Tang Kielsan nodded in confirmation and added that if I made a quick decision now, he would teach me all the martial arts. As he spoke, he gave me a meaningful smile. If the young warrior needs more time to consider, then I'll have to reconsider as well. Hearing this, I didn't hesitate to express my willingness to join the Tang clan. Tang Kielsan immediately revealed a triumphant smile. Congratulations, young warrior, you are now a member of the Tang clan. Moments later, we returned to Anyang's residence. After a thorough search, we finally found the artifact he left behind. the horrifying martial art blood hand poison claw. Following this discovery, Tang Keelsan confidently gave the order to return to the Tang clan. As we were leaving, something glowing caught my attention. We approached to investigate and discovered it was a feather from the Jinyao. Tang Keelsan picked up the feather and said, "Since you're interested in the Jinyao, consider this feather a commemorative gift for becoming a member of the Tang clan." I happily thanked the patriarch, but Tang Keelsan didn't seem to like being addressed that way and mentioned that after the formal induction ceremony, he would have me change how I addressed him. Meanwhile, the Grand Patriarch Tang Musong, who had departed earlier, finally returned to the Tang clan after a long journey. He went straight to his granddaughter Hua Yin's room. Seeing that she still showed signs of life, he breathed a sigh of relief and immediately placed the inner core into her mouth. Soon, a green flame burst forth from within her body. On the other side, after a journey of 1.5 months, we finally arrived at the Tang clan. Seeing the magnificent and grandiose sight before me, I couldn't help but marvel. I never imagined that the entire mountain belongs to the Sichuan Tang clan. Soon, upon hearing the news of our arrival, disciples came streaming out, with a woman in red running at the back. Tears flowed down her face as she cried, "Father." Tang Keelsan was momentarily stunned, then broke into a joyful smile and embraced her tightly. "Hua Yin, you finally recovered." At that moment, my face couldn't help but flush slightly. Oh my, is her beauty even real? In my previous life, I worked with many beautiful celebrities during live streams, but she's the first person I've ever found so dazzling. Just then, Tang Keelsan interrupted my thoughts. Pointing to the woman beside him, he introduced her, "This is my daughter, Hua Yin." Upon hearing this, Hua Yin turned to look at me. The moment our gazes met, ripples stirred in my heart, and I couldn't help but recall what Tang Keelsan had said back at the Taoist temple, that he intended to betroth his daughter to me. Does that statement still hold true now? Just after Tang Keelsan finished introducing Hua Yin, in my excitement, I accidentally called her Yunhua instead. With a puzzled expression, Hua Yin repeated, "Yunhua." I immediately realized I had misspoken, and the situation turned awkward. Oh no, oh no. I just mixed up the name of the daughter of a major family head. How am I supposed to get by after this? I quickly changed the subject. "It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Wei Soryong. It seems your plague has been cured, and that's wonderful news." Hua Yin now recalled the events from half a month ago. At the time, after consuming the inner core of the blue spot centipede, she had slowly opened her eyes. Her mother was overjoyed, but Hua Yin shed tears of guilt. As the only daughter of the Tang clan's leader in Sichuan, she harbored struggles unknown to others. Though her talents had yet to fully manifest, her exceptional beauty had already earned her the nickname "one of the 3 flowers in the martial world." As a result, the elders often suggested to her father that she should marry early. This filled Hua Yin, who had always wanted to contribute meaningfully to the family, with a deep sense of insecurity. Determined to earn the elders' approval, she locked herself in her room every day and trained obsessively, only to succumb to inner chi deviation due to her impatience. "Grandfather, mother, I'm sorry, but I've now lost all my inner chi," Hua Yin said regretfully. Her grandfather, however, burst out laughing. "That's nothing to worry about. Haven't you already achieved the level of 100 poisons? That's something worth celebrating." Hua Yin was stunned and immediately opened her palm to confirm. Seeing the confusion on his granddaughter's face, her grandfather explained the whole story to her. "So, that young warrior not only saved your life but also helped you break through to the level of 100 poisons." Snapping back to reality, Hua Yin quickly clasped her hands and bowed. "Thank you, young warrior, for saving my life. This debt, I, Poisonous Flower, will never forget." Just then, a voice suddenly echoed in my mind. "Well, isn't my daughter beautiful? Do you want to pick this rose?" Shocked, I looked at Tang Keelsan. He was using voice transmission. Moments later, I went to the bathroom to take a bath, but the 3 centipede larvae only dared to play around in the wooden tub. Seeing this, I gave a sly grin. "Don't you usually refuse to leave my side for even a second?" After I said this, the larvae seemed to understand and stretched out their tiny legs as if asking for a hug. I replied, "Hot water isn't good for your bodies." Then I joked, "Staring at my bare body like this will make me shy." Hearing this, the larvae immediately ducked their heads back into the tub. It seems Tang Keelsan was right, centipedes do have spirits. However, thinking about Tang Keelsan, my mind grew muddled again. What exactly did he mean by, "Do you want to pick this rose?" Meanwhile, Tang Keelsan narrated the events that had transpired and suggested that I stay in the East Wing room, which was reserved only for family members. Even the elder patriarch Tang Musong hadn't expected me to possess such abilities. Tang Keelsan continued, "The young warrior seems to be surrounded by extraordinary fate. Not only did he hatch the blue spot centipede's eggs, but he also dealt with Ta Kunyang and even encountered the legendary Jin Yao." At that, he suddenly called out to Hua Yin, "I want the young warrior to be my son-in-law. What do you think?" Hua Yin immediately fell into deep thought. I've already broken through to the level of 100 poisons. If I stop now, the elders in the family definitely won't approve of me. With that in mind, she slammed the table and stood up. I understand my father's intentions, but whether the young warrior is worthy of me or not, I must assess his character and abilities personally. After saying this, she ran out with a look of defiance. Tang Kielsan wiped the sweat from his brow. Young warrior, it seems you'll need to be careful. Roses may be beautiful, but they have sharp thorns. The scene shifted, and after my bath, I was still fretting over calling Hua Yin by the wrong name. What am I supposed to do now? Surely the daughter of the big boss hates me now. Just then, a voice suddenly startled me. It was Hua Yin. She was panting as she said, "Young warrior, may I bother you for a moment? I have something urgent to ask. Could you extend your hand?" Without thinking, I raised my hand, but the next second, a realization hit me. Embarrassed, I fidgeted with my fingers and said, "I'm not sure why you're in such a hurry, but this kind of thing, let's wait until we're more familiar with each other." Blushing, Hua Yin explained, "Young warrior, what nonsense are you thinking? I just wanted to check your pulse. But I suppose it's natural for such a misunderstanding to occur after such a sudden request." With that, she sat down beside me and explained her purpose. It turned out that, as the only direct descendant of the Tang clan, Hua Yin had long been marginalized by the collateral branches simply because she was a woman. As a result, her father had always wanted to find a capable son-in-law to carry on the family line. This suddenly made everything clear to me, so, Tang Kielsan doesn't like me calling him patriarch. I thought of him as my boss, but he sees me as his son-in-law. At that moment, Hua Yin, looking slightly apologetic, said, "Even if the pulse check doesn't yield good results, it's fine. You're my lifesaver, and I'll never treat you unfairly." Hearing this, I immediately extended my hand and said, "I understand what you mean. Go ahead and confirm." She placed her fingers on my pulse and explained, "The martial arts of the Tang clan are not something just anyone can learn. Some people can absorb poisons and poison-based techniques, but others cannot, and it can even be life-threatening. Therefore, to master the Tang clan's poison arts, one must endure corresponding deadly poisons." After the diagnosis, Hua Yin confirmed that I had a constitution capable of cultivating poison techniques, but with limited aptitude, what she called the 10 poisons body. In other words, out of countless poisons, I could only handle 10 types. Hua Yin then bowed deeply and said, "Young warrior, thank you once again for saving my life. Tang clan will surely repay you well." I understood the implication behind her words. Such an average aptitude clearly wouldn't earn her approval. This left me somewhat disappointed. However, my disappointment wasn't in Hua Yin's subtle rejection, but in the thought, with this level of aptitude, how could I possibly conquer the Zhen Niao? That night, after taking a bath, Hua Yin looked puzzled. Ever since consuming the centipede inner core, why does my body always carry this strange odor? Could it be punishment for speaking harshly to my savior? Meanwhile, I was snoring soundly in bed. Unbeknownst to me, I found myself in a peach blossom forest. There, Hua Yin knelt before me, repeatedly expressing her gratitude. This left me utterly confused. Wait, am I dreaming? At that moment, Hua Yin spoke up to explain, "I was afraid of startling you, my benefactor, so I borrowed this girl's appearance. In truth, I am the mother of those children, the blue spot centipede." Hearing this, I was dumbfounded. "Are you saying those 3 little creatures that cling to me every day are your children? I never imagined they were so adorable. But why are you appearing in my dream?" The blue spot centipede told me that after her death, her soul remained in her inner core due to overwhelming resentment, cursing anyone who consumed it. "It wasn't until you appeared with my children that I decided to reach out to you through a dream. This filled me with guilt. After all, it was me who revealed your location." However, the blue spot centipede smiled slightly. "If you feel remorseful, my benefactor, could you grant me one request? Please raise my children until they grow up." I was puzzled. Don't centipedes become independent after shedding their skins twice? The blue spot centipede explained, "That's true for ordinary bugs, but my children are different. Before shedding their skins twice, they need to absorb the energy of their mother's inner core and then feed on the true chi of other beings to grow strong." This confused me even more. Since the Tang clan's young lady consumed the inner core, shouldn't they stay by her side? Upon hearing this, the blue spot centipede's expression changed drastically. "I placed a curse on that girl. After consuming my inner core, her body will occasionally emit a foul odor. The reason I did so was to prevent any males from approaching her, ensuring that she won't be able to continue her family line." Hearing this, I was shocked. Truly, women are dangerous. The blue spot centipede continued, "The only way to lift the curse is to let my children absorb the energy from the inner core. So, my benefactor, could you win that girl's heart?" This made me fall into deep thought. After a moment, I smiled and politely declined her request. "That's something I can't do. I don't want to take advantage of the young lady's predicament to achieve my goals." The blue spot centipede's face lit up with relief. I knew I wasn't wrong about you. You are indeed a compassionate and honorable person. However, I can't help you find the inner cores of the 10 great poisons. So, how do you plan to solve the problem of that girl needing a strong man? Hearing this, I suddenly thought of something and immediately promised her, this matter will definitely be resolved smoothly. The next day, I went straight to Hua Yin and explained the reason behind the foul odor emanating from her body. So, as long as the little centipedes absorb the energy from your body every few days, the odor will naturally disappear. Hua Yin was utterly surprised. I can't believe you told me the truth without asking anything in return. I smiled in response. I can't be a shameless scoundrel who takes advantage of a woman's plight, can I? Hearing this, Hua Yin fell silent. Then, she suddenly spoke, I can't keep accepting your help unconditionally. I think I should seriously consider my father's suggestion. Perhaps some things are more valuable than aptitude and martial achievements. Hearing this, I scratched my head in embarrassment. Honestly, I hesitated for a while before saying it. You said I have the 10 poisons body and can only resist 10 types of poison. Well, I've decided. I'll choose the 10 great poisons of the Central Plains. This left Hua Yin utterly shocked, and her face unconsciously flushed red. Could it be that he's aiming to become the #1 in the world, for me? What should I do? Is this his way of confessing to me? Then, Hua Yin tentatively asked, do you know what you're saying? That path will be arduous and exhausting, and you might not even accomplish it in your lifetime. As she spoke, her face grew even hotter. Young warrior, you're still 3 years away from the marriageable age. If you can obtain one of the 10 great poisons within these 3 years, I'll be able to make up my mind. At this point, she bashfully poked her fingers together. So, if you succeed, you'll qualify. I mean, for marriage. After saying this, she suddenly stood up. In any case, I'll cheer you on. She then hurriedly ran off in a fluster. However, before she could take a few steps, I called out to her. She turned around to see me grinning awkwardly while patting the wooden bench. Miss Hua Yin, don't you need to get rid of the odor? Why not stay for another hour before leaving? Hearing this, Hua Yin froze on the spot, then awkwardly shuffled her way back. Seeing this, I reassured her, don't worry, these little ones definitely won't bite you. Then I turned my gaze toward the 3 little centipedes. Kids, leave daddy and go to mommy now. Upon hearing this, Hua Yin's eyes widened with joy and delight. Mommy? The scene shifted to Tang Kielsan and a few others worrying about his daughter. Tang Kielsan sighed, the young warrior is excellent, but Hua Yin doesn't seem very satisfied. Hua Yin's mother chimed in. This morning, it seemed like Hua Yin rejected the young warrior. This plunged the room into silence. Then, Hua Yin's mother suddenly thought of an idea. Since we can't force them to marry, why not have Hua Yin teach the young warrior martial arts? That way, they'll see each other often, and perhaps feelings will develop over time. Tang Musong immediately agreed and even suggested inviting the elder healer sage to perform a cleansing of the marrow and cutting of the bones for me to improve my aptitude. But Tang Kielsan wasn't too optimistic about the idea. Back then, when we asked the elder healer sage to help Hua Yin, he refused. Just then, Hua Yin's voice came from outside the door. Tang Kielsan was puzzled. Why is she here at this time? Seeing everyone present, Hua Yin appeared even more nervous. Then, blushing, she said, I'm willing to follow father's suggestion. Tang Kielsan looked confused. Which suggestion are you referring to? Hua Yin's mother seemed to have figured it out. Could it be that you've fallen for the young warrior? Hua Yin gave a slight nod, tacitly confirming it. Seeing this, Hua Yin's mother immediately clapped in delight, while Tang Kielsan was surprised. Why did you suddenly change your mind? Weren't you dissatisfied with him before? Hua Yin shyly poked her fingers together. Young warrior said he wants to become the #1 in the world for me. Tang Kielsan immediately became intrigued. Daughter, can you elaborate a bit more? After hearing the whole story, everyone was first stunned, then burst into hearty laughter. That boy is truly bold. He actually promised to fill his gap by defeating the 10 great venomous creatures. At this point, Hua Yin added, I've already agreed with young warrior. If he can obtain one of the 10 great poisons before reaching adulthood, I'll agree to marry him. Tang Kielsan joked, why didn't you ask for 3 poisons instead? That would be more fitting for my daughter. Amid the cheerful atmosphere, Tang Musong concluded, from now on, we'll treat him as our son-in-law, but we'll pretend not to know. And during his efforts, let's gradually become one family. Late at night, the blue spot centipede appeared in my dream again. She held my hand with admiration in her eyes. My benefactor, you're amazing. You've completely won that girl's heart. After saying this, a hint of sadness appeared on her face. My benefactor, this will be my last appearance in your dream. Now that my resentment has been resolved, my soul will soon ascend to the afterlife. If there's anything you need help with right now, I will assist you unconditionally. Hearing this, I hesitated for a moment before saying seriously, if it's possible, could I take a look at your body? This caught the blue spot centipede off guard, but she still complied and slowly lifted her shirt. Men truly are perverts. Meanwhile, the three kids cooperatively covered their eyes. However, the next second, I stopped her with a confused expression. Why are you taking off your clothes? I just wanted to see you transform into your blue spot centipede form. Hearing this, the blue spot centipede's face was filled with embarrassment. As a cloud of smoke dispersed, a massive blue spot centipede appeared before me. Seeing this scene, my eyes lit up immediately. It's real, it's really huge. Then, unable to contain my excitement, I began touching her body. Such sturdy joints, such sharp fangs. This chitin is truly extraordinary. After Tang Kiel-san learned about my relationship with Hua-in, he took the initiative to have a conversation with me. Hua-in has already told me, so from now on, you are officially my son-in-law. The wedding will take place as planned once you come of age. Just as I was about to speak, Hua-yin's mother eagerly introduced herself as my mother-in-law. The Grand Patriarch, filled with joy, added, Hua-in having a husband is truly a great blessing. Hearing this, I couldn't help but glance at Hua-in in confusion. Wasn't our marriage conditional? Had she already told the elders that she fully accepted me? Regardless, I decided to go along with it for now. Feeling slightly embarrassed, I scratched my head and said, I'll be in your care from now on. Seeing this, Tang Kiel-san and the Grand Patriarch exchanged smiles. We've been waiting for this day for so long. Then, Tang Kiel-san informed me that before I could begin learning poison techniques, there was one important matter, to take me to see the most mysterious place in the Tang clan, the Hall of 10,000 Poisons. I can assure you, you will love it there. Moments later, I followed them toward the Hall of 10,000 Poisons. The Grand Patriarch explained that, as a member of the Tang clan, it was tradition for family members to accompany one on their first visit, not only as a custom but also for safety reasons. This filled me with anticipation. As the name suggested, the Hall of 10,000 Poisons must be a place where all kinds of deadly poisons were stored. Just as I was about to confirm with Hua-in, her delicate profile suddenly caught my attention. When I snapped out of it, I realized that Tang Kiel-san and Hua-yin's mother were watching me with knowing smiles. Kid, you've practically memorized my daughter's face. She's already yours, why are you still staring so intently? Hua-yin's mother teased with a smile. It seems our Hua-in has completely captured our son-in-law's heart. Before long, we arrived at the Hall of 10,000 Poisons. The gatekeeping disciples immediately bowed respectfully, and the Grand Patriarch gave the order to open the doors. Two robust men obeyed the command and exerted all their strength to push open the massive doors. By the time the doors were fully opened, they were so exhausted that they collapsed onto the ground. Witnessing this, I was astonished. Tang Kiel-san chuckled and explained, this door is forged from Kunyu steel, sourced from the southern wilderness and weighs 1,000 catties. Opening it is considered a great honor. Stepping inside the hall, I was instantly overwhelmed by the sight before me. The Grand Patriarch explained that this was the core of the Hall of 10,000 Poisons, where all the poisons of the Sichuan Tang clan were stored. I curiously examined the various poisons. Tang Kiel-san reminded me not to touch anything recklessly, then smiled and asked Hua-in to introduce them to me. Hua-in blushed slightly but still took my hand, eagerly leading me through a tour of the most powerful poisons in the Tang clan. Although poisons like alimentary canal necrotizing poison, spirit-destroying poison, and bloody pulp poison are extremely potent, the most formidable poison in the Tang clan is actually another one. As she spoke, she picked up a poison the size of a bean and placed it in my palm. This is the Tang clan's exclusive deadly poison, the seed of the castor plant. Upon hearing this, I immediately thought of ricin. This is a highly toxic plant protein, requiring only about 2 milligrams to be lethal to an adult. Famously, it was used in the umbrella assassination of a Bulgarian dissident during the Cold War. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but widen my eyes in shock. Isn't this a poison 100,000 times more potent than potassium cyanide? However, Hua-in remained calm, as if she was used to it. Its most terrifying aspect is that it is colorless, tasteless, and formless. That's why we regard this poison as the greatest treasure among poisons, calling it golden poison. Those who die from it are referred to as golden death. She specifically reminded me, the most powerful poison is not one that causes extreme pain, but one that kills invisibly and undetectably. That is why the philosophy of the Sichuan Tang clan's poison arts is, to take lives silently and without a trace. Hearing this, I couldn't help but feel a chill down my spine. Isn't this just like the assassins in espionage dramas? At that moment, the Grand Patriarch suddenly spoke. This is just the basics. Now, let's take him to see the poison he most wants to witness. If you like it, you can even be in charge of it. Hearing this, my interest was immediately piqued. Can we go right now? The Grand Patriarch nodded. Anything you desire, the Tang clan will fully support. However, at that moment, an urgent voice came from outside the door. A disciple rushed in, panting as he reported, Patriarch, you may need to go to Black Tortoise Pavilion immediately. The family elders. The Grand Patriarch frowned and interrupted, what is it this time? The disciple continued, there are two matters. First, the medicine sent to the Lord of Sichuan City was ineffective, and he has sent back a letter full of complaints. The second matter. At this point, his gaze fell on me. The Grand Patriarch immediately understood what he meant but hadn't expected news of the Hall of 10,000 Poisons to spread so quickly. Without hesitation, he called for me to accompany him to Black Tortoise Pavilion. Right then, the elders in Black Tortoise Pavilion were engaged in heated discussions. As soon as they saw us arrive, they immediately raised their concerns. Patriarch, how could you make such an important decision on your own? You've chosen an orphan with an unknown background as Hua Yin's husband. Hearing these words, Tang San was filled with rage, and a powerful aura erupted from within him. Are you insulting my son-in-law? Sensing the rising tension, the Grand Patriarch intervened in time. This is my decision. Do any of you have objections? The elder's tone immediately softened. But entrusting the Hall of 10,000 Poisons to someone untested seems rather reckless. Seeing the situation grow more complicated, Hua Yin softly apologized to me. However, I simply let out a sigh. She wasn't the one who needed to apologize. So, I spoke up to break the deadlock. Since everyone is concerned about my abilities, if I can prove myself, would you all be willing to accept me? For example, solving that troublesome issue with the Lord of Sichuan City, who has been troubling the Tang clan. Upon hearing this, Hua Yin and her mother were utterly shocked. Sacheon, this is not something to joke about. But deep down, I knew, I wasn't someone who sought the spotlight. However, if anyone dared to stand in the way of my happiness with my poisons, I would never sit idly by. Upon hearing my proposal, the elders immediately became furious. When the elders are speaking, what right does a junior have to interrupt? Moreover, you don't even understand the Lord of Sichuan City's illness, yet you dare to speak so recklessly? That's why it's best to choose a son-in-law with a known background. It's the safest choice. Faced with the elders' endless doubts, I suddenly recalled my past life as a toxicology blogger. No matter how hard I worked, there were always skeptics and malicious comments online. Thinking of this, I immediately countered. From what you're saying, it seems you still refuse to acknowledge me as the son-in-law of the Sichuan Tang family. Don't forget, it was I who saved your precious Hua Yin, I who defeated Bloodhand Rakshasa Takanyang, and I who saved the Patriarch's life. And now, this is how you treat me? Is this the renowned hospitality of the Sichuan Tang clan? Upon hearing this, the elders immediately felt guilty. We were too hasty earlier, we misspoke. However, they quickly resumed their doubts, questioning whether I had truly defeated Bloodhand Rakshasa Takanyang. At that moment, Tang San directly presented the Bloodhand Poison Claw manual as evidence. While the elders were still in shock, he gestured for me to reveal the centipede larvae. So, I lightly patted my clothes. In the next second, 3 tiny centipede hatchlings appeared before everyone. Tang San explained, these are the blue spot centipede hatchlings raised by my son-in-law. They were the ones who killed Takanyang. Now, do you believe it? Hearing this, the elders broke into a cold sweat. This young warrior can actually tame the blue spot centipedes? Seeing their terrified expressions, Tang San looked smug, while I simply smiled slightly. Children, you mustn't bite people at random, or else they'll end up like Takanyang, blackened all over and dead. Upon hearing this, the elders were momentarily stunned, then their attitudes shifted drastically. As expected of the Patriarch's chosen son-in-law, we were merely following protocol, which is why we came to inquire. At that moment, the Grand Patriarch suddenly spoke. Since you now acknowledge his status, why do you still oppose him managing the Hall of 10,000 Poisons? The leading elder hurriedly explained, this young warrior is still quite young and has yet to reach adulthood. How can we entrust the Hall of 10,000 Poisons to a mere child? The Grand Patriarch pondered for a moment before saying, if that's the case, son-in-law, would you be willing to demonstrate your abilities? Without hesitation, I nodded in agreement. In order to gain the elders' approval and prove my ability to manage the Hall of 10,000 Poisons, I decided to use the Sichuan Tang clan's method to cure the city lord's illness, by fighting poison with poison. Upon hearing this, the elders were instantly horrified. What nonsense are you spouting? We asked you to cure him, not to kill him. You need to find a proper remedy. Afterward, the Grand Patriarch specifically kept me behind. Since you have now made an agreement with the elders, starting today, you will begin learning the Tang clan's martial art, 5 poisons returning technique. Hearing this, I became excited. Is it a technique for training footwork? The Grand Patriarch shook his head. Footwork is important, but the Tang clan focuses more on practical combat. So, we will teach you techniques that are immediately useful. With that, he laid out an assortment of hidden weapons before me. Do you know which of these hidden weapons is the easiest to master? I pondered for a moment before answering, it should be the short blade or throwing knife? The Grand Patriarch nodded. And the most difficult? I hesitated before replying, is it sand? The Grand Patriarch shook his head. The most difficult is the needle, because you must precisely control the throwing position. As he spoke, he retrieved a writing brush from his sleeve, removed the bristles, and flicked his wrist. In the next instant, the seemingly weightless brush bristles transformed into sharp steel needles and embedded themselves into the ground. I was utterly astonished. The Grand Patriarch explained, "This is the Tang clan sky-obscuring flower rain hidden weapon technique. It allows you to scatter projectiles in an instant, leaving your enemy with nowhere to escape." I frowned. If the entire area is filled with these hidden weapons, wouldn't there be no place left to step? The Grand Patriarch chuckled. "That's precisely why it is the most difficult hidden weapon technique. If used improperly, it could end up harming the user instead." Hearing this, my expression darkened. Indeed, those who dealt with poisons were truly ruthless. The next day, while I was basking in the sun at the pavilion, Hua Yin suddenly came looking for me. "Sacheon, does this look alright?" I looked at her in confusion. "What are you dressed like this for?" Hua Yin explained, "I heard that you're catching male bees today, so I made special preparations." I immediately expressed my gratitude. "With this gear, we can set off right away." On the way to search for the beehive, Hua Yin suddenly asked, "Have you read the letter from the Lord of Sichuan City?" As she spoke, her face turned slightly red. "Sacheon, you're still young. I'm worried you might not understand the contents of the letter." I replied calmly, "Isn't the Lord of Sichuan City's issue simply impotence?" Hua Yin's face immediately flushed with embarrassment. "Sacheon, I didn't expect you to know so much at such a young age." After saying that, she hurriedly ran off. Before long, we arrived at our destination. Hua Yin asked in confusion, "What do you mean by looking for a beehive with fewer bees?" I explained, "We're not looking for bees, but rather a venomous insect that resides in the hive. This insect usually only appears in smaller beehives." After some effort, I finally found the target. That's right, this venomous insect was the key to curing the city lord's impotence. After I found the venomous insect that could cure the Lord of Sichuan City's ailment, Hua Yin curiously asked me for its name. I told her that this insect was called blister beetle, also known as ground beetle. Hua Yin looked puzzled. "Why do they live in beehives?" Hearing this question, I immediately explained to her. Blister beetle has a very unique reproductive method. Most insects either guard their eggs after laying them or choose a suitable environment for hatching. But blister beetle is different. It lays eggs indiscriminately, without any preference for location. Once blister beetle larvae hatch, they climb to the highest nearby point and perform a peculiar act. They cluster together to mimic a flower, luring bees to collect nectar. When an unsuspecting bee approaches, the larvae immediately cling tightly to it, staying attached until the bee dies. After hearing my explanation, Hua Yin scratched her head and asked further, "But I heard that this insect is highly toxic, capable of causing skin burns. And if ingested in excess, it could be fatal." I nodded in confirmation. Blister beetle secretes a yellow toxin containing cantharidin, which is extremely potent. If it comes into contact with the skin, it causes blistering, similar to a burn. However, what Hua Yin hadn't expected was that such a dangerous insect could also have that particular medicinal effect. I smiled knowingly and said, "That's right. When its toxicity is properly controlled, it can indeed help restore a man's virility." Upon hearing this, Hua Yin's face turned bright red. You should stop talking. Let's just hurry back." After returning to the Hall of 10,000 Poisons, I meticulously explained the preparation method to the apothecaries. First, blister beetle must be dried and ground into powder. However, this powder still contains 10% of its toxin. If a person ingests 3 mg at once, it could be life-threatening. Therefore, each pill's dosage must be strictly controlled at 1/10 of a milligram. In liquid form, that equates to 10 drops of water. Does everyone understand? After hearing my explanation, the apothecaries all displayed expressions of astonishment. The lead apothecary couldn't help but exclaim, "I never expected your calculations to be so precise. Rest assured, we will strictly adhere to your instructions in the preparation process." That night, after learning about the effects of blister beetle from Hua Yin, the Grand Patriarch was quite surprised. "It seems we need to reorganize the Tang sect's poison formulas." Then, Hua Yin mentioned my arithmetic skills to the Grand Patriarch. He can even precisely calculate the weight conversion between milligrams and drops of water. The Grand Patriarch was astonished. I originally thought he was just skilled in poisons, but I never expected him to understand even this. The more I learn about him, the more I see his value. Then, he suddenly changed the topic. "So, has your impression of him improved significantly now?" Hua Yin lowered her head in embarrassment and softly said, "Well, I did misunderstand him at first." Afterward, the Grand Patriarch asked, "Once the medicine is completed, how do we verify its effectiveness?" Upon hearing this question, Hua Yin's face instantly turned red. "This," she murmured before covering her face in embarrassment. "Sacheon said that the clan's elders have become too arrogant. Perhaps it's time to restore the family's discipline. Hearing this, the Grand Patriarch burst into hearty laughter. This kid is truly amusing. The next day, the apothecaries presented the finished medicine to me, adding, to make the medicine easier to consume, we mixed in licorice powder and honey for a slightly sweet taste. I eagerly opened the medicine box. Was it made according to my specifications? The apothecaries nodded in confirmation, but the clan's elders scoffed with disdain. Such unnecessary theatrics, anyone who didn't know better might think you've created something extraordinary. At that moment, Tang Kielsan spoke. Now that the medicine is ready, how does my son-in-law plan to verify its effectiveness? I countered, is verification even necessary? Upon hearing this, an elder slammed the table and stood up. Of course, it must be verified. How can we send an untested medicine to the Lord of Sichuan City? If anything goes wrong, the consequences will be unimaginable. I smiled slightly, as if I had anticipated this reaction. If that's the case, then there's only one way. Saying this, I gestured for the apothecaries to hand another pill to the elders. The elders were momentarily stunned before looking at me warily. Are you suggesting that we test the medicine ourselves? Who knows what you might have put in it? I smirked playfully. Grandfather, didn't you say that Tang sect members fear no poison? Look at them now, are they actually afraid? The Grand Patriarch nodded in agreement. Now that my grandson-in-law puts it this way, it does seem true. I continued to provoke them. Besides, they are all grand elders who have trained in the 100 poisons realm. How could they possibly fear a mere blister beetle pill? Hearing this, the elders, thoroughly provoked, refused to back down and swallowed the pill in one gulp. If this medicine doesn't work, we will not let you off. A moment later, one elder sneered. See? Nothing is happening at all. However, before he could finish his sentence, he suddenly realized something unusual happening to his lower body. And just like that, the family's discipline was restored. Soon after, the elders lifted their robes and hurriedly fled the scene in panic. Seeing this, the Grand Patriarch burst into uncontrollable laughter. They may be stubborn, but in the end, they still fell for it. However, they were only acting in the family's best interest, so don't hold it against them too much. However, before I could respond, Hua-yin came running over, panting heavily. Sacheon, something terrible has happened. Our child has become really strange. Upon hearing this, the Grand Patriarch suddenly grabbed me, his sharp gaze filled with fury as he gritted his teeth and questioned. Grandson-in-law, what does Hua-yin mean by child just now? Where did you two get a child? Hua-yin quickly waved her hands in denial. No, not that kind of child. I'm talking about the centipedes that Sacheon is raising. It turned out that since I had been busy training recently, Hua-yin had been taking care of the centipedes during this time. Hearing this, I immediately raised both hands and reached straight for Hua-yin's chest. Quick, let me see. However, what I received in response was a harsh slap. Soon, upon seeing the centipede larvae, Hua-yin anxiously asked, are they sick? Observing their now translucent bodies and slightly odd-looking exoskeletons, I immediately understood the reason. Miss Hua-yin, don't worry. This is called molting. It's a necessary stage in a centipede's growth. They are currently at a critical moment in the process and will complete it soon. Sure enough, before long, the centipedes began writhing, struggling to shed their old exoskeletons. And then, before our eyes, a newly molted centipede emerged, looking completely refreshed. The Grand Patriarch was amazed. This is absolutely incredible. They look at least twice as large as before. At this moment, Hua-yin suddenly asked me, do these little ones have names? I thought for a moment and said, why not just call them number 1, number 2, and number 3? Hua-yin immediately shook her head in disapproval. A 1,000-year centipede can eventually transform into a dragon. You need to give them names with more grandeur. I quickly corrected her. Miss Hua-yin, a 1,000-year centipede doesn't actually turn into a dragon. The Grand Patriarch, however, chuckled and said, why wouldn't it? A 1,000-year centipede can absolutely become a dragon. Otherwise, why would they be called 1,000 dragons? I was left speechless, so this was yet another folk legend passed down by the older generation. In the end, after some serious thought, I gave them new names. Let's call them Nova, Myra, and Grace. The eldest is Nova, meaning beginning. The second is Myra, meaning fragrance, and the third is Grace, representing something elegant or gentle. Hua-yin happily agreed. Wonderful, the little ones finally have names. The next day, the centipedes returned to my side. However, what troubled me was that they had grown too large and heavy. The centipedes, which were originally the size of sausages, had now grown as thick as my arm. They also seemed to feel that my embrace had become too cramped, and now preferred to coil around my arms and waist instead. At that moment, I suddenly overheard a conversation between some passers-by, which caught my attention. A man with a mole, holding gold and silver, spoke smugly. As expected of the Tang clan of Sichuan, their generosity knows no bounds. Upon returning to the Tang clan estate, Tang Keelsan brought great news. The medicine we sent to the Lord of Sichuan City worked exceptionally well. As a token of gratitude, he has sent us a letter of thanks along with a generous reward. At this point, Tang Keelsan couldn't help but burst into laughter. This is all thanks to my wonderful son-in-law. You have truly done a great service for men everywhere. So, as a reward, Tang Keelsan paused for a moment before solemnly announcing, I have decided to give you an elixir. Before I could respond, Hua Yin eagerly asked, Father, what kind of elixir? Tang Keelsan chuckled and replied, it is the honey of the golden-haired king bee. Hearing this, I looked puzzled. Honey is considered an elixir? My grandfather had once told me that elixirs could enhance internal energy. Since that was the case, I might as well accept it. However, Hua Yin was dissatisfied. Father, if you're rewarding Sacheon, why give him something so insignificant? The golden-haired king bee may be a mid-tier venomous creature, but its honey is only a low-grade elixir. Sacheon has made a huge contribution this time. He should at least be rewarded with something that enhances a year's worth of internal energy, not just 2 months' worth. Hearing this, Tang Keelsan looked embarrassed. Because elixirs are too expensive. Hua Yin was even more displeased. Compared to Sacheon's contribution, this is utterly insignificant. Tang Keelsan immediately looked aggrieved. This is why having a daughter is so tough. Seeing this, I quickly spoke up, attempting to change the subject. Father-in-law, what exactly is the golden-haired king bee? Tang Keelsan immediately began explaining. The golden-haired king bee is one of the mid-tier venomous creatures, residing deep in dense forests. Its size is about that of a small dog. The honey it produces can provide the equivalent of 2 months of internal energy. Hearing this, my eyes instantly lit up. A bee the size of a small dog? That's incredible. However, Hua Yin pushed me aside and snorted coldly. Father, we haven't settled the previous matter yet, have we? Tang Keelsan hurriedly waved his hands in defense. It's not what you think. I mainly chose this because I thought Sacheon would be interested in the golden-haired king bee. Hearing this, I became instantly excited. Father-in-law, do you mean you're taking me to see the golden-haired king bee? After receiving Tang Keelsan's confirmation, I immediately recalled the joy of collecting honey in my past life. With that thought, I couldn't wait any longer and dashed out the door, following Tang Keelsan. And so, we embarked on our journey to find the honey. However, when we arrived at our destination, we discovered that 2 groups were already there, arguing fiercely over the queen bee's honey. What surprised me even more was that they had all purchased the same intelligence from the same mole-faced man. In that instant, I understood everything, so that guy had been selling the same information everywhere to swindle money. This left me somewhat at a loss, but Hua Yin's gaze instantly turned icy cold, exuding a murderous intent. Who is so blind as to dare sell intelligence that the Tang clan purchased to others? Upon hearing this, the members of the unorthodox sect were immediately startled. We never expected the poisonous flower of the Tang sect to come in person. They quickly changed their attitude and respectfully saluted. We have no intention of competing with the Sichuan Tang clan for this item. Having said this, they hurriedly withdrew. Witnessing this scene, I was utterly shocked. This matter was resolved this easily? The captain of the Poison Blood squad shook his head. Those unorthodox sect members definitely won't give up so easily. They are likely lurking nearby, waiting for the right moment to strike. Let's find a place to take turns keeping watch to prevent a surprise attack. After assigning the task, he ordered his subordinates to investigate the whereabouts of the unorthodox sect. A short while later, under the captain's leadership, we finally reached our destination. Gazing at the golden-haired king bee and its swarm before me, I couldn't help but exclaim excitedly, "So this is the golden-haired king bee?" The captain nodded. They are called the golden-haired king bees because their entire bodies are covered in golden fur. However, I quickly noticed something unusual. Isn't this swarm a bit too small? Hua Yin looked at me in confusion, so I explained, a typical small hive would have at least 5,000 to 7,000 bees. But given the golden-haired king bee's massive size, this swarm looks to have only a few hundred at most. Hua Yin was surprised. You can tell without even going inside? I smiled and replied, just by observing the activity at the hive entrance, you can roughly estimate the size of the swarm. Just then, a scout rushed over. We found traces of the unorthodox sect. Those guys are hiding in the forest across from us. They haven't acted yet, but once we take the honey, they will definitely make their move. The captain pondered for a moment before saying, after nightfall, we'll use the Tang clan's method to collect the honey. Noticing my curious expression, the captain continued explaining, burning mugwort leaves produces smoke that calms the bees, allowing us to take the honey safely. However, a subordinate hesitated and said, but, the wind direction is wrong right now. The smoke will blow towards us instead, making it impossible to drive the bees away properly. The situation instantly became awkward. But soon, I came up with an idea. Since the wind is blowing toward us, it means the bees won't detect our scent. If that's the case, let me give it a try. Hua Yin immediately objected. The golden-haired king bee is a dangerous mid-tier venomous creature. Even if you have experience, you can't act recklessly. But no matter how much she tried to dissuade me, I refused to give up this opportunity. However, at that very moment, an accident occurred. Carelessly, I accidentally kicked a stone, which rolled directly to the entrance of the hive. Seeing this, Hua Yin and I were instantly stunned. The next second, hundreds of golden-haired king bees suddenly swarmed out of the hive. Fortunately, Hua Yin reacted swiftly, grabbing me and sprinting away at full speed. After escaping to a safe area, I sat on a large rock, deep in thought. Is there really no other way? The golden-haired king bees were completely different from ordinary bees. They could detect ground vibrations from as far as 30 meters away. Even wild bees weren't this sensitive. As I was lost in thought, Hua Yin gently approached and softly said, "The little ones just finished eating, so I brought them out for a walk. Sacheon, don't be too anxious, there will always be a way." Hearing this, I expressed my gratitude to her. Seeing my gloomy expression, Hua Yin quickly changed the subject. "Sacheon, look, those two monkeys over there are fighting. They seem extremely aggressive." At that moment, I suddenly caught a peculiar scent. "Miss Hua Yin, do you smell that sweet fragrance in the air? This scent, could it be pheromones?" Realizing this, I immediately pulled Hua Yin aside. "Quick! A swarm of bees will gather here soon." Upon hearing my warning, Hua Yin wasted no time in pulling me away to safety. After retreating to a safe distance, Hua Yin turned back to look at the spot where we had been, her face filled with shock. A massive swarm of golden-haired king bees had arrived, charging straight at the two monkeys. Within mere seconds, the monkeys were covered in stings, wailing in agony. Hua Yin asked in confusion, "Sacheon, how did you know the golden-haired king bees would attack them?" I explained, "It's because the monkeys carried a certain special scent. That fragrance, it must be the scent of magnolia flower." Hua Yin stared at me in astonishment. "You can distinguish the scent of pheromones?" Hearing her surprise, I clapped my hands excitedly and asked, "Hua Yin, did you smell that scent just now?" Saying this, I suddenly placed my hand on her shoulder, my gaze firm. "That's it. That must be the scent of magnolia flower." With that, the corners of my lips curled into a knowing smile. I've finally figured out a solution. Meanwhile, the members of the unorthodox sect were drinking and chatting in the forest opposite. "When do you think the Tang clan will go collect the honey?" The scar-faced man frowned, pondering for a moment before saying, "They've been lingering around all day, and now they've suddenly gone quiet. They'll probably make their move soon. But," he paused, his eyes flickering, "is that hive really worth all this trouble?" The buzzcut man answered confidently, "Of course. Candles made from the wax of the golden-haired king bee are a rare treasure, used exclusively in the imperial palace." His face was filled with smugness. "Once the Tang clan gets the honey, they'll definitely leave immediately. At that point, the remaining hive will be ours." As he spoke, a sinister smile suddenly appeared on his face. "Of course, what if they accidentally die?" At this moment, a bearded man interjected, "I heard that one of the three flowers of the martial world, the poisonous flower, is here as well. If she encounters danger while collecting honey, and we step in to save her." As he spoke, a lecherous grin appeared on his face. "Who knows? One of us might even end up marrying into the Tang clan." The group burst into laughter. However, at that moment, he suddenly sensed something amiss. "Do you guys smell something?" The buzzcut man dismissed it with a joke. "That must be the fragrance from the poisonous flower herself, right?" As soon as he finished speaking, a strange noise suddenly echoed from above. The group looked up, and their expressions changed drastically. A massive swarm of golden-haired king bees was diving straight toward them. Witnessing this scene, everyone was struck with terror. They scattered like headless chickens, but it was already too late. Amidst a series of blood-curdling screams, they ultimately perished under the venomous stings of the golden-haired king bees. Looking at the scattered flowers and fruits on the ground, Hua Yin was full of confusion. "Sacheon, what exactly is going on? I never expected these bees to be so sensitive to floral scents." I chuckled and said, "This was precisely the attack command I gave them." Hua Yin was still puzzled. "But all you did was crush some flowers and fruits?" So, I patiently explained to her, the scent released by these plants is actually an attack signal, also known as pheromones. Pheromones are chemical signals specifically used for communication among the same species. Ants and bees, in particular, are experts at using pheromones to communicate. And the pheromone I created is the very alarm signal that bees release when attacking isoamyl acetate. After hearing my explanation, Hua Yin couldn't help but exclaim, "This is incredible. I never would have thought that the scent of magnolia flower is so similar to the bee's attack signal." This surprised me. "How were you able to recognize the scent of magnolia flower?" Hua Yin smiled and replied, "The Tang clan is famous for its poisons, so I have been highly sensitive to different scents since childhood. After she finished speaking, my gaze shifted to the entrance of the hive. Since the golden-haired king bees have flown out to attack, let's hurry inside. Soon, under the cover of mugwort smoke, we cautiously approached the entrance of the hive. However, to our shock, the hollow of the tree was far larger than we had imagined. Fortunately, though, the bees had all flown away. However, after a careful inspection, I noticed something unusual. Why is there no honey in the hive at all? The captain was equally puzzled. We've never encountered this before. However, when I noticed that there were no bee larvae in the hive, a thought instantly flashed through my mind. They might have sensed that this place is no longer safe. So, they've consumed all the honey and are preparing to relocate. When bees are relocating, they don't lay eggs because they don't have time to care for the larvae. As I was speaking, my gaze was suddenly drawn to something. Deep within the hive, a golden-haired king bee was still hidden. The corners of my lips curved into a knowing smile. Captain, how long can your mobility arts last without rest? The captain was briefly stunned before replying, at least half a day. Why do you ask? Before he could finish speaking, a panicked shout came from outside the cave. Damn! The golden-haired king bees are all coming back. Upon hearing this, the captain immediately signaled for everyone to evacuate. However, I remained engrossed in my own plan. Seeing this, Hua-yin didn't hesitate and pulled me into a mad dash for escape. At last, we reached a safe area, and everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. Hua-yin looked at me in confusion and asked, Sacheon, what exactly were you looking for just now? Just then, a golden-haired king bee suddenly crawled out from my collar. Seeing this, Hua-yin immediately jumped in shock. What did you just bring out? I replied nonchalantly, it's the queen of the golden-haired king bees. Since there's no honey, I brought the one who can make it instead. Upon hearing this, everyone broke into a cold sweat. Are you saying, this little thing is the queen of the golden-haired king bees? At that moment, I flashed a devilish grin. Captain, do you know? A bee swarm will always chase after their missing queen. So, let's run. And so, we embarked on our escape. With a massive swarm of golden-haired king bees relentlessly pursuing us, everyone had to run with all their might, leaving no time to rest. One by one, the weaker team members fell behind. By the third day, the teammate carrying me could no longer endure and collapsed to the ground, falling into a deep sleep. Seeing this, Hua-yin immediately offered to carry me. But as soon as she spoke, she seemed to realize something, and her face instantly turned red, her tone becoming slightly shy. We will definitely make it back safely. The Tang clan would never give up so easily. At last, supporting each other, we returned to the Tang clan's main estate. The disciples guarding the gate, upon seeing our condition, immediately fired the signal flare. Before long, the Grand Patriarch and Tang Keelsan hurried over. Seeing Hua-yin utterly exhausted, Tang Keelsan checked her injuries while frowning and asking, what exactly happened? After I explained the entire situation, I immediately suggested, we need to move to the training grounds quickly. The Grand Patriarch looked puzzled. Why the training grounds? I took out the small creature from my arms and explained solemnly, this is the queen of the golden-haired king bees. The rest of the swarm will be here soon, so we must bring it to the dead tree in the training grounds immediately. Seeing this, the Grand Patriarch burst into hearty laughter. You, boy, are bound to be someone great in the future. In contrast, Tang Keelsan was completely dumbfounded. I only sent you to collect honey. How did you end up bringing back the queen bee? After giving all necessary instructions, the Grand Patriarch immediately led me toward the training grounds. However, before we could even reach our destination, a massive swarm of golden-haired king bees had already caught up. The Grand Patriarch clearly hadn't expected us to attract such a vast swarm of bees, and he immediately sprinted at full speed. Before long, we finally arrived at our destination. Without hesitation, I quickly brought the queen bee to the dead tree. I loosened my grip, signaling the queen bee to inspect its surroundings. After circling around the dead tree once, it began to dance in joy. At that moment, the Grand Patriarch reminded us, the swarm will be here any moment, we should hide quickly. As the queen bee continuously released its signal, a massive swarm of golden-haired king bees soon arrived, swarming into the dead tree. Seeing this, I finally breathed a sigh of relief, and even the Grand Patriarch couldn't help but exclaim, this is the first time I've ever seen such a spectacle. After settling the golden-haired king bees, I specially prepared sugar water to feed them. By providing food first and nurturing them gradually, we can surely build trust over time. Not only will this help them lower their guard, but perhaps one day, they may even recognize me as their master. At that moment, a thought crossed my mind, father-in-law, how is Hua-yin? Tang Keelsan's tone carried a hint of reproach. You brat, you only thought of this now, but I've already had your mother-in-law take her back to her room to rest. But why did she look so exhausted? I explained helplessly, she only slept 2 hours a day, and spent the rest of the time running for her life. Hearing this, Tang Keelsan was both shocked and furious. At that moment, the Grand Patriarch suddenly remembered something. Where are the Poison Blood Squad members? Only then did I snap back to reality. They were all completely exhausted and had collapsed along the way. The Grand Patriarch immediately sent people to bring them back. Time passed. Once Hua-Yin had recovered, she rushed to find me, eager to check on the golden-haired king bees. I told her, they are currently gathering nectar from the poisonous flower fields of Tang Mountain. Hearing this, Hua-Yin couldn't help but smile. They must be really adorable, right? However, at that moment, an urgent voice came from outside. Young warrior Sacheon, come quickly. Something is wrong with the golden-haired king bees. When I rushed outside, I was stunned by the sight before me. The entire sky above the Tang clan was filled with golden-haired king bees. They seemed to be searching for something. At that moment, a few golden-haired king bees spotted me. Immediately, a large swarm of queen bees rushed toward me, clinging onto my body. Before I could react, in the next second, they carried me away from the estate. Eventually, they brought me to the dead tree. Staring at the beehive before me, I was filled with confusion. What happened to your hive? What's going on? At that moment, a golden-haired king bee began nudging me with its body, signaling me to move forward. I immediately understood its intent. As I stepped into the hollow of the dead tree, I realized the hive was almost fully built. Soon, the queen bee flew toward me, gently landing in the palm of my hand. Immediately, a massive swarm of golden-haired king bees surrounded me tightly, enclosing me completely. This left me completely immobilized. Seeing the queen bee's contemplative expression, I was utterly perplexed. What are you trying to do? However, just as the queen bee slowly closed its eyes and leaned toward me. As expected, my first kiss was stolen by a bee, but what shocked me even more was, when I realized that I had swallowed something, my body suddenly became unbearably hot. Next, my limbs gradually lost control, and I collapsed to the ground. What did you just feed me? At that moment, a scorching heat and immense pulsation surged through my entire body. You must have fed me royal jelly, right? After saying this, my consciousness gradually faded, and I completely lost awareness. When I woke up again, I found Hua-Yin looking at me with deep concern. Sacheon, you're finally awake. Hua-Yin told me, this is the medical hall in front of the Tang clan. When we saw you being taken away by the golden-haired king bees, my grandfather and I immediately followed. But by the time we arrived, you were already unconscious. So, do you remember what happened? Hearing this, something suddenly came to my mind. Immediately, I covered my face in distress. That was my first kiss. Unaware of the situation, Hua-Yin asked with concern, Sacheon, are you okay? Are you feeling unwell anywhere? Should I call my grandfather? I gestured for her not to worry, it's just temporary. Saying this, I let out a long sigh. What I mean is, the queen bee fed me the food they normally consume, which caused me to fall unconscious. Hua-Yin was very curious about this. Then, what exactly was it? I pondered for a moment. I'm not entirely sure of its exact name. But if I had to name it, I'd call it King Bee Elixir. Seeing Hua-Yin's puzzled expression, I continued explaining. Bees collect pollen and nectar because they rely on them for survival. However, only worker bees, who labor for their entire lives, consume these pollens and nectar. In contrast, the queen bee eats only the king bee elixir produced by worker bees from birth to death. But king bee elixir also has a special effect. Ordinary worker bees only live for a short lifespan of about a month and a half. However, a queen bee that consumes king bee elixir can live up to 60 times longer. Hearing this, Hua-Yin was utterly shocked. But soon, she understood everything. Your internal cultivation technique is the 5 poisons returning technique. Although it's only at the introductory stage and cannot fully absorb the power of the elixir. But didn't my father say that the honey of the golden-haired king bee can enhance internal energy by 2 months? In other words, your body has now gained 10 years worth of internal energy, precisely 60 times. So, Sacheon, congratulations on obtaining a miraculous opportunity. This left me utterly astonished. 10 years of internal energy? As she spoke, Hua-Yin suddenly became shy, and, you should check yourself in the mirror later. It seems that king bee elixir has some additional effects. Hearing this, I was completely puzzled. But when I saw my reflection, I felt something was off. My facial features have become more refined, and my skin seems smoother. This immediately made me think, the king bee elixir that the queen bee eats, could it be turning me into? At that thought, I hastily pulled open my waistband to check. Thank goodness. It's still where it should be. Now that I was safe and sound, it was time to express my gratitude. After all, Hua-Yin had mentioned, if it weren't for her grandfather guiding my energy, I might have been in serious trouble. But on my way there, I couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was acting strangely today. Why is everyone staring at me? Could it be because my internal energy has increased? Upon arriving at the main hall, my mother-in-law was the first to express her concern. Our son-in-law looks quite radiant. Your health must have improved, right? I cupped my hands in salute. Mother-in-law, I apologize for causing you worry. I am perfectly fine now. My mother-in-law couldn't help but tease, Gaining such a miraculous fortune is worth celebrating. Just look at that skin, my daughter is indeed fortunate. Hearing this, Hua Yin's face turned bright red. Mother, please, just let Sacheon sit down and eat. Once everyone was seated, the first thing I did was express my gratitude to the Grand Patriarch. The Grand Patriarch, in turn, congratulated me on my extraordinary fortune. At that moment, Tang San suddenly spoke. I've heard a bit about the King Bee elixir from Hua Yin. What exactly happened? After hesitating for a moment, I decided to tell the whole truth. It seems that the golden-haired king bees were very satisfied with their new home, and the queen bee wanted to repay my kindness. So, it took me to the hive and then fed me king bee elixir. Upon hearing this, everyone was utterly shocked. Who would have thought that even highly venomous creatures know how to show gratitude? At that moment, the Grand Patriarch suddenly spoke. But speaking of which, can we obtain more of this king bee elixir? This could be of great benefit to the Tang clan. Tang San immediately agreed. Even just the honey from the golden-haired king bees provides significant benefits. If it's king bee elixir, then the benefits must be immense. My mother-in-law also showed great urgency. Son-in-law, can you obtain more king bee elixir? Seeing this, I looked troubled. If they were ordinary bees, we could create multiple queen cells, the chambers for queen bees, and trick the worker bees into producing royal jelly for us. But if it's the highly intelligent golden-haired king bees, they would see through it instantly, wouldn't they? Normally, king bee elixir is food that worker bees feed to larvae. But in my case, I was fed directly, by the queen bee, through kissing. What if the two substances are entirely different? Thinking this through, I immediately decided to explain to everyone. This might be very difficult. Even if it's edible, I don't know if anyone would be willing to consume it. This confused everyone. Does it taste strange? Or is it the smell? I shook my head in denial, because this king bee elixir comes directly from the queen bee's mouth. It must be personally transferred by the queen bee. And the method resembles a kiss, requiring mouth-to-mouth contact. The queen bee's tongue must enter the recipient's mouth to transfer it. Upon hearing this, everyone was utterly stunned. So that means, it's impossible to obtain? Unless it's Sacheon, whom the queen bee favors, no one else would stand a chance, right? At that moment, Hua Yin, who had just processed everything, suddenly interrupted. Are you saying Sacheon kissed the queen bee? At the same time, the strategist Jiggle, who brought an important piece of intelligence and reported it to the Murim alliance leader, Fist Emperor Zhu Junghak. The Tang clan of Sichuan has slain the Bloodhand Rakshasa, Tak and successfully obtained the Bloodhand Poison Claw manual. Upon hearing this, Zhu Junghak was instantly enraged. The Bloodhand Poison Claw? How could such a terrifying, horrifying manual fall into the hands of the Tang clan? Jiggle, who calmly continued, some time ago, Tak was struck by the myriad poison's divine sovereign's poison palm and disappeared without a trace. Later, he wandered to Hainan Island and went into seclusion. However, the most astonishing part is that a young warrior supposedly joined forces with venomous creatures to eliminate Tak There are many incredible details behind this. He smiled slightly and said slowly, why don't I recount it to you in detail? The scene shifted. Tang San had gathered all the clan elders to discuss an important family matter. However, when everyone learned that Tang clan's intelligence had been secretly sold, they were immediately enraged. Who dares to humiliate our Tang clan like this? Tang San spoke in a low, sharp tone. I have already asked the Beggars sect for assistance in investigating this. I believe we will identify the mastermind soon. However, before that, I must personally make a trip to Yingchuan Commandery. One of the elders immediately asked, if we find the culprit responsible for leaking this information, how should we deal with them? Tang San let out a cold laugh, his tone sinister. Let them experience the torment of the 5 venoms inferno. The soul-annihilating poison will shatter their minds. The blood-flaming poison will dissolve their internal organs. The intestine-disabling poison will make them writhe in unbearable agony. And finally, the 7-step soul-severing poison will send them to their doom. After giving his orders, Tang San summoned the Venom Extermination Squad. Son-in-law, I will return soon. Make sure you get some good rest. I smiled slightly and cupped my hands in salute. Father-in-law, please take care on your journey. Watching the departing figures of the squad, I couldn't help but ask in curiosity, Miss Hua Yin, are those the legendary Venom Extermination Squad? Hua Yin nodded and explained, they are an elite force specifically tasked with carrying out the most dangerous missions of the Tang clan. At that moment, a voice suddenly came from behind. I heard you recently obtained a miraculous opportunity. I nodded in acknowledgement. But as I spoke, I suddenly realized something. Could it be, you're also after the King Bee elixir? Seeing the two hesitating and struggling to speak, I couldn't help but press further. Is there something you need my help with? Or, do you also want to taste the golden-haired King Bee's honey? Upon hearing this, the two immediately waved their hands in denial. How could we possibly covet something like that? The world's spiritual medicines and rare treasures all have their rightful owners. We would never covet them. We only. As they spoke, they discreetly moved closer to me and whispered, "Actually, we wanted to ask about that ground beetle medicine. We heard that you personally refined it?" Upon hearing this, I immediately understood their intent. Without revealing my thoughts, I casually took a few ground beetle medicines from my sleeve and toyed with them in my hand. I have indeed gone through many challenges to adapt to the Tang clan. If the esteemed elders could offer more support to me, then such a small favor is nothing at all. Upon hearing this, the elders immediately beamed with joy and declared on the spot, "Our son-in-law is truly sensible. From now on, we will undoubtedly give you our full support." Seeing this, even the Grand Patriarch was stunned. "Since when did your relationship become so good?" The elders responded excitedly, "He is our wonderful son-in-law. Of course, we should strengthen our bond." The Grand Patriarch couldn't help but laugh heartily. "It seems you all have finally realized the value of my grandson-in-law." However, just then, someone rushed in hurriedly and shouted, "Supreme Patriarch! A major incident has occurred. The Lord of Sichuan has collapsed in his room." Everyone was shocked upon hearing this. The city lord, could it be? The disciple hesitated and stammered, "Well, the Lord of Sichuan saw how effective the medicine was and took a new concubine. As a result, he began taking more than twice the recommended amount." The Grand Patriarch immediately felt a headache coming on. "It seems I'll have to go check on this personally." Then, he looked at me solemnly, "Sacheon, you are the only man left in the family now. You must protect the women." This left me puzzled. "Grandfather, why would you say that? The mighty Tang clan of Sichuan, what major trouble could possibly arise?" As night fell, Hua-Yin mentioned a martial art I had recently learned, the 10 poisons dual origin art. If the 5 poisons returning technique is a singular circulation of poison power, then the 10 poisons dual origin art is like 2 streams of poison energy intertwining and merging. At this point, you should have developed a strong resistance to ordinary poisons. In fact, you can now directly release poisonous fumes or infuse poison into your weapons. Hearing this, my heart trembled. I immediately glanced at the humanoid straw dummy nearby, feeling an urge to experiment. Thus, I closed my eyes and carefully controlled the flow of my internal energy, allowing the 2 streams of poison power to rotate simultaneously until the energy spread throughout my body. In the next instant, I swiftly swung my hand and hurled a throwing dagger. With a sharp sound, the straw dummy was instantly sliced in half at the waist. However, unbeknownst to me, a group of masked individuals in the shadows were staring in terror at the flying dagger. Could it be, "We've been discovered? Should we eliminate him?" But upon realizing that the dagger had only cut through the straw dummy, they let out a sigh of relief. "It seems to be just a coincidence." At that moment, one of the masked men whispered, "Even though we only obtained a copy of the Bloodhand Poison Claw manual, our mission is still considered a success. Before anything goes wrong, let's hurry back to report to our sect." However, just as they were about to retreat, one of them suddenly furrowed his brows and whispered, "Do you smell a strange, sweet fragrance?" The group became alert and scanned their surroundings, only to have their expressions change drastically. They saw a golden-haired king bee staring at them fiercely. The moment the 3 masked men were discovered by the golden-haired king bee, the once peaceful Tang clan was suddenly filled with piercing screams. Hua-Yin and I turned toward the source of the noise, only to see the masked assailants locked in a fierce battle with the king bee. Seeing this, Hua-Yin leaped forward without hesitation, swiftly charging toward the enemies. Realizing that their cover had been blown, the masked men immediately split up and attempted to flee. Without delay, Hua-Yin lashed out with her whip, striking toward them with great force. However, the masked men were highly skilled and managed to evade the attack with remarkable agility. At that moment, one of the masked men launched a counterattack. Seeing this, I quickly shouted, "Miss Hua-Yin, be careful." Hua-Yin swiftly raised her whip to block the attack. Immediately afterward, she flicked her whip with great force, sending the enemy flying. The sheer impact of the strike slammed the opponent to the ground. However, to my shock, the masked man's body began to decay rapidly. Hua-Yin's expression turned grim as she spoke in a low voice. "He bit down on poison and killed himself. It seems there is an even greater secret behind this group." With that, she immediately commanded the pursuit team, "We must not let the remaining ones escape. Continue the chase." And so, we pursued them all the way to a remote, desolate forest. However, at that moment, I accidentally stepped into empty space and fell downward. Luckily, I reacted quickly and managed to grip the edge of the ground tightly with both hands. But when I looked down, I gasped sharply in horror. Inside the cavern, hundreds of venomous serpents coiled and slithered ominously. The disciple, Gupei, pulled me up while explaining, "This is the snake pit, a place where yin energy converges, easily attracting large numbers of venomous snakes to dwell. Especially in this season, young warrior Sacheon, you must be extremely cautious. However, my gaze remained fixed on the snake swarm, my brows furrowing. Strange. Tiger-striped water snakes usually aren't this aggressive. But now was not the time to dwell on this. We quickly resumed our pursuit. Before long, at the foot of the mountain, the masked men came to a halt. Seeing this, Gu Pei, the captain of the pursuit team, immediately gave the order, encircle and eliminate them. The Tang clan disciples obeyed the command and charged forward to engage the enemy. A fierce battle erupted between the two sides, with blades flashing and blood splattering in all directions. However, the Tang clan had the advantage in numbers, and the masked men gradually became overwhelmed, ultimately falling into a disadvantageous position. At that moment, Gu Pei sneered coldly as he approached slowly, his gaze sharp. Consider yourselves lucky. If not for this sudden downpour diluting the poison on our throwing knives, you would have long perished in the underworld. However, at that moment, a chilling laugh suddenly echoed. Quite a gathering of little insects here. The next second, a dark figure suddenly emerged from the ground. Seeing this, Gu Pei's expression changed drastically, and he quickly signaled everyone to retreat. The newcomer exuded an overwhelming aura, clearly an extremely dangerous individual. The elderly man, draped in a black robe, slowly turned his head toward the masked men behind him and asked indifferently, "Did you retrieve the item?" The masked men hurriedly presented a manual, speaking with reverence. "It is not the original, but this is a copied version transcribed by the Tang clan." Witnessing this scene, my heart trembled. Isn't that the horrifying manual grandfather had stored away? Realizing the gravity of the situation, I immediately shouted, "Warrior Gu Pei." The book in his hands is the Bloodhand Poison Claw manual. Hearing this, Gu Pei's eyes widened in fury as he bellowed, "Scoundrel! Who exactly are you? Why have you stolen this cursed demonic art?" However, in response to Gu Pei's furious rebuke, the black-robed elder merely smiled faintly as he slowly flipped through the manual. Though this copy lacks the critical formulas, having just the forms is more than sufficient. After all, this serves as the perfect proclamation of our return. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly let out a chilling laugh and turned his gaze toward one of the masked men. "Blood Glory, as an elder of our sect, I grant you permission to use our sacred techniques. Now, go and eliminate these Tang clan ants." Upon hearing this, the masked man called Blood Glory immediately raised his hand and pressed it against a fallen comrade's corpse. In the next moment, the blood from the corpse surged wildly toward his palm. Witnessing this scene, Gu Pei and I were utterly horrified. What kind of demonic art is this? He's actually absorbing the blood from the corpse? After completing the absorption, Blood Glory's body was instantly purged of all toxins. At the same time, a sinister crimson aura slowly began to rise around him. At that moment, the black-robed elder's lips curled slightly into a sinister smile. "Weren't you eager to know who I am? I am a blood cult elder, the Bloodhawk Daggerclaw, Gu Chianak. And now, let me savor the fresh blood of the young warrior." Thus, after years of hiding, the blood cult finally launched an attack on the Tang clan. But what I hadn't expected was that their target was actually me. Seeing this, Gu Pei attempted to step forward and intervene, but it was already too late. Blood Glory suddenly extended his arm, gripping my throat tightly as a cold smirk curled at the corner of his lips. "The elder requires your blood essence. Surrender quietly." At the critical moment, I mustered the last of my strength and called upon my 3 children. Blood Glory was immediately startled, but before he could even comprehend the origin of these creatures, a throwing dagger pierced directly into his forehead. I followed the trajectory of the dagger and saw Hua Yin arriving with the clan elders and the captain of the Poison Blood Squad. However, upon learning that the enemy was an elder of the blood cult, her expression shifted slightly before she decisively commanded, "Deploy the 9 Poison Annihilation Formation." In the midst of the standoff, the blood cult elder swept his gaze across the battlefield and sneered. "So, this brat is the one who defeated Ta Kunyang, the blood-handed poison claw?" But Ta Kunyang was truly pathetic, getting bitten to death by 3 mere insects. How laughable. Hearing this, the squad captain roared in fury. "Silence! You won't leave here alive today either." The blood cult elder let out a sinister chuckle, and in the next instant, a surge of crimson energy erupted wildly from his body. "If you have the skill, come and try." However, as the battle continued, I gradually sensed something was wrong. Our injuries were worsening, while that bastard could rapidly heal himself just by absorbing blood. At this rate, we wouldn't be able to hold out much longer. At that moment, a loud explosion suddenly erupted behind me. I turned around abruptly and saw Hua Yin collapsed on the ground, her face contorted in pain. I rushed over, quickly supporting her as I anxiously asked, "Miss Hua Yin, are you all right?" She, however, grasped my hand tightly, her voice weak but firm. "Our strength isn't enough. Sacheon, please return to the clan immediately and bring reinforcements." The squad captain echoed her words. Warrior Sacheon, rest assured, we will protect Miss Hua-yin at all costs. Hearing this, my heart filled with guilt. In this battle, I was of no help at all. But even if I left immediately, could I truly return in time with reinforcements, even with my mobility arts? Just as I hesitated, Hua-yin suddenly leaned into my embrace and whispered, "I believe you can do it. Haven't you been training diligently all this time? Once this is over, we still have to go search for rare poisons together. So, Sacheon, I'm counting on you." With that, she resolutely turned back into the battlefield, and I no longer hesitated. I set off immediately to seek reinforcements. Even though I was gasping for breath, I dared not slow down. However, at that moment, I accidentally tripped over a stone. Just as I was about to get up and continue running, a strange feeling suddenly arose in my heart. Even if I exerted all my strength using my mobility arts, it would still take at least half a day to return, and most of the clan's experts were away. Even if I brought reinforcements, they might not arrive in time. Could it be they deliberately sent me away? Was it because I was the youngest? Or was it because I was too weak and needed protection? At that moment, I suddenly recalled something Tang Kielsan had once said. "From now on, you are one of our family." Yet, only at this moment did I realize, I had never truly contemplated the meaning of the word family. Deep down, I had always felt that I did not truly belong to the Tang clan, but they had always treated me as one of their own, even if their care sometimes left me feeling lost. Thinking of this, my gaze instantly became resolute. This time, I would not run away again. I immediately changed direction and sprinted back toward the battlefield. As I ran, I kept thinking of a way to break the deadlock. If we wanted to win, we had to find the Blood Cult Elder's weakness. The Blood Cult's vampiric technique, the nearby venomous creatures, the poisonous herbs. Suddenly, inspiration struck me. I quickly secured my 3 children, and in the next second, I leaped into the snake pit without hesitation. Since that's the case, I'll use the way of the venomous serpents to deal with that bastard. The red-necked keelback, also known as the flower snake, is a truly venomous serpent. However, unlike venomous snakes with hook-shaped fangs at the front of their mouths, its fangs are located in the rear of its jaw. Although its venom injection method is quite unique, in terms of toxicity, it is undoubtedly the most potent land snake in East Asia, even more terrifying than the black mamba. Fortunately, the Tang clan's internal cultivation techniques can counteract poison, so this plan should be feasible. However, my 3 little companions seemed to sense something was amiss, watching me anxiously. I quickly signaled them not to act rashly. Yet, just as I thought everything was foolproof and was about to leave, I suddenly realized that several venomous snakes had tightly coiled around my legs. Damn! How did this happen? At that moment, my 3 companions suddenly leaped from my shoulder. Before I could react, they had already taken a defensive stance against the venomous snakes. In the next instant, a fierce battle erupted, with both sides biting and attacking relentlessly. After several intense exchanges, my 3 companions gradually gained the upper hand, allowing me to seize the opportunity to break free. Gently stroking them, I whispered, "You're worried about me, aren't you? Then now, let's go save Mom together." Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Hua Yin's expression grew increasingly grim. "If this continues, everyone will perish." She immediately gave an order. "Everyone, try to engage from a distance. Once the rain stops, send a signal to the nearby warriors." At that moment, a Tang clan elder standing before her suddenly spoke. "Hua-yin, you should retreat as well. If something happens to you, how will we answer to the clan leader?" However, without even a moment's hesitation, Hua-yin firmly rejected his suggestion. "What nonsense are you saying? As a direct descendant of the Tang clan, how could I abandon my family in battle and retreat alone?" At that moment, the Blood Cult Elder suddenly interrupted their conversation with a cold sneer. "How utterly boring. If the playthings keep thinking about running away, then where's the fun in that? Since we are announcing the return of the Blood Cult, we should present a truly shocking gift. Reducing the Tang clan to ruins, wouldn't that be far more entertaining?" Hearing this, the Tang clan elder was consumed with fury. It seems this bastard never intended to let any of us live. Hua-yin gripped her long whip tightly, steeling herself for a desperate battle. "Even if we die here, we must at least sever one of his arms." Just as the battle was about to erupt, a voice suddenly echoed from the distance. "The Tang clan will never abandon family and retreat." Hua-yin froze for a moment, her face filled with shock. "Sacheon, why did you come back?" I secured my 3 little companions, looked directly at her, and spoke with firm resolve. "Didn't you say that the Tang clan never abandons family? And I am also a part of the Tang clan." Before my words had even faded, I tore off my shirt and charged at the Blood Cult Elder without hesitation. "Sacheon, don't go!" Hua-yin cried out in alarm. However, the Blood Cult Elder let out a deep, sinister laugh. "I went through the trouble of sparing your life, and yet you willingly deliver yourself to me." I gave no response, gripping my dual blades tightly as I aimed straight for his vital points. But with a mere flick of his hand, the blood cult elder effortlessly deflected my attack. How utterly overconfident. Since you're so eager to offer up your blood essence, I shall grant your wish. As soon as his words fell, he struck out fiercely, aiming straight for my abdomen. But I was ready. I swiftly raised my left arm to block the attack. Seeing this, the blood cult elder let out a series of cold sneers. Foolish boy, do you not realize that your arm contains blood as well? As blood continued to flow from my arm, I couldn't help but let out a muffled groan of pain. Seeing this, Hua Yin and the others immediately rushed forward to rescue me. However, the blood cult elder merely let out a disdainful snort, stomped fiercely on the ground, and sent everyone flying. All those pesky throwing weapons flying around like flies were getting annoying. How irritating. But thanks to this brat, I've managed to deal with all of you at once. At this moment, Hua Yin knelt on the ground, calling out to me repeatedly, Sacheon, wake up, you mustn't leave me like this. Just as she was about to fall into despair, I slowly opened my eyes, while the blood cult elder's expression changed dramatically. He staggered backward a few steps, his body trembling slightly as the arrogance on his face was gradually replaced by terror. You, what have you done to me? Could it be internal energy dissipating poison? But he quickly dismissed his own assumption. No, the blood cult's internal energy techniques should be immune to the internal energy dissipating poison. So, who exactly are you? Hearing this, the corners of my lips curled slightly into a devilish smile. Who am I? I am your natural enemy. The elder of the blood cult still could not comprehend what had happened. Ever since I let that brat's blood flow through me, the blood no longer obeys my will. However, at the thought of the blood cult's future, he forcibly steadied his mind. Damn brat. You all must die. Before his words had even fully fallen, he launched a new round of attacks with a ferocious expression. Seeing this, Hua Yin swiftly lashed her whip, and it wrapped precisely around the blood cult elder's neck. This surprised her. How could that ghostly fiend fail to dodge? However, at this moment, the elder had already lost his sanity, disregarding the whip's restraint as he continued to charge forward. Hua Yin immediately flicked her wrist and pulled with force. In the next moment, the blood cult elder was decapitated. The crowd witnessed this scene and revealed expressions of surprise and joy. Miss Hua Yin actually beheaded the blood cult elder with her whip. However, Hua Yin still felt puzzled. Sacheon, what is going on? Why does it feel like his power suddenly? Before she could finish, I interrupted with the last bit of strength I had left. Hua Yin, I was bitten by tiger-striped water snakes, help me detoxify. When I regained consciousness again, I found the Grand Patriarch sitting by my bedside, detoxifying me. Hua Yin gestured for me not to move, while the Grand Patriarch informed me that I had been unconscious for a full 10 days. Then, Hua Yin recounted the events to me. Thanks to you, I was able to behead the blood cult elder. After that, we brought your unconscious body back to the clan. Fortunately, grandfather returned just in time, or things might have turned out badly. Hearing this, I couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. It seems my fate with snakes runs deep. I was bitten yet again. At this moment, the Grand Patriarch suddenly spoke. Your body is no longer an issue. But that aside, is the tiger-striped water snake truly venomous? And how did you know its venom could counter the blood cult elder? I immediately explained. First of all, the tiger-striped water snake is indeed venomous, and its venom comes in two forms, one within its oral cavity and another secreted by the venom glands in its neck. The reason people believe it to be non-venomous is due to its timid nature. When faced with danger, it usually flees immediately. The Grand Patriarch pondered for a moment before asking, then, is the disappearance of the blood cult elder's internal energy related to this venom? But aren't the blood cult members immune to the internal energy dissipating poison? I continued, the venom of the tiger-striped water snake primarily contains hemotoxins, which are hemorrhagic in nature, capable of destroying the cell walls of red blood cells, as well as blood vessels and other tissues. If this venom enters the body of a blood cult member, what do you think would happen? Now, it seems this hypothesis was entirely correct. This venom directly affects their very foundation, blood, which is why it led to such an outcome. Moreover, while the tiger-striped water snake is not well known, its venom is 5 times more potent than that of a viper. If combined with a yin-rich environment, its toxicity becomes even more intense. The Grand Patriarch was greatly shocked upon hearing this. He had never expected such a highly venomous creature to exist near Sichuan. Suddenly, he chuckled and said, Hua Yin told me that at the time, you even pointed at the blood cult elder and arrogantly provoked him, claiming that you were his natural enemy? Hearing this, my face immediately flushed with heat. Hearing it like that, it sounded so damn edgy, like a middle school delusion. But considering that I could completely neutralize their martial arts, calling myself their natural enemy didn't seem entirely wrong. At that moment, the Grand Patriarch's expression suddenly turned solemn. Sacheon, this time, it was thanks to you that our family was protected. Those who dared to commit atrocities while I was away must not be spared. I will eradicate them completely. I immediately nodded in agreement. Those damn bastards must pay for their crimes with blood. Now that we've discovered their weakness, our next step is to collect a large amount of tiger-striped water snake venom. From that day on, the Tang clan entered a state of full alert. During this time, many of the family's martial artists were injured, and some even lost their lives. To support the Tang clan, various allied Orthodox Murim factions sent reinforcements. The Grand Patriarch stated, considering that our enemies are all top-tier martial artists, such casualties are already relatively light. However, the thought that the blood cult might once again unleash carnage fills my heart with deep concern. 30 years ago, those bloodthirsty fiends orchestrated a massacre of unimaginable cruelty. They were not only ruthless but also indiscriminately captured innocent people for their blood. However, this time, things will be different, because the Tang clan of Sichuan is destined to be their natural enemy. Hearing this, I couldn't help but furrow my brows and protest indignantly. Grandfather, are you saying this on purpose? The Grand Patriarch merely chuckled before shifting the topic. Sacheon, I have a request. I wonder if you would be willing to accept it. The people from the Murim Alliance will be arriving soon, and their military forces will be accompanying them. When that time comes, I hope you can present the venomous creatures we discovered to them. I want to make the blood cult's weakness known to the world so that everyone can use it against them. Hearing this, I nodded without hesitation. The Grand Patriarch burst into hearty laughter. I knew you wouldn't refuse. Also, I have more good news. The renovation of the Hall of 10,000 Poisons is now complete. From today onward, it is officially under your management. Upon hearing this, I was overwhelmed with excitement. Really? Is my dream finally coming true? The Grand Patriarch nodded affirmatively. Moreover, I specifically prepared a well-lit room according to your request and named it the Toxic Creature Garden. After all, since you're raising tiger-striped water snakes, there must be a suitable environment for them. Hearing this, I could no longer contain my excitement and shouted, Grandfather, thank you. For the sake of the Murim, I will give it my all. Finally, I stood before the long-awaited Toxic Creature Garden. As its name suggested, this place would become a sanctuary for all venomous creatures in the future. And one day, I would collect all of the legendary 10 venomous creatures of the Central Plains. After all, this was my promise to Miss Hua Yin. Upon hearing this, Hua Yin's cheeks instantly flushed red, and she stammered before finding an excuse to slip away. At that moment, a voice suddenly rang out, Welcome to your new domain. I am Gu Pei, the commander of the Poison Division. Hua Yin and I exchanged glances, both filled with confusion. Seeing our expressions, Gu Pei continued to explain, this is a newly established unit under the Patriarch's orders. Our duty is to assist warrior Sacheon. From now on, the tasks of finding and raising venomous creatures will be entirely entrusted to us. Hearing this, my lips couldn't help but tremble, and I was moved to tears. I never expected that even a squad dedicated to searching for venomous creatures had been formed. My future father-in-law is truly giving me his full support. With this, my dream had taken yet another step forward. Meanwhile, in a distant location, a middle-aged woman received a letter sent by the Tang clan. After carefully reading its contents, her brows furrowed tightly, and his face was filled with worry. The blood cult has returned. It seems that the peace of the Central Plains is destined to be shattered. After several days of arduous travel, the Murim Alliance group was finally about to arrive at the Tang clan. General Jeagle, who was filled with anticipation, at last, he could escape the hardships of sleeping in the wilderness. He hoped to gather some valuable intelligence on this trip, and if he could uncover traces of the blood cult, that would be even better. Before long, they arrived at the gates of the Tang clan. The guards on duty immediately noticed their arrival. May I ask if you are from the Murim Alliance? Upon receiving confirmation, the guard did not immediately allow them entry but instead issued a few precautionary reminders. We ask that once you enter the Tang clan, no matter how insignificant a creature you encounter, you must not harm it under any circumstances. Hearing this, Jeagle, who couldn't help but speculate, could it be that the Tang family has embraced Buddhism? The guard shook his head in denial and reiterated solemnly, You will understand once you enter. Please remember what I just said. At that moment, a familiar voice came from the entrance. Greetings, the General of the Alliance. The newcomers were Hua Yin and me. Seeing us, Jeagle, who quickly stepped forward to return the courtesy. Miss Hua Yin, it has been a long time. May I ask where the Myriad Poison's Divine Sovereign is now? Hua Yin smiled slightly and replied apologetically, Grandfather has temporarily left to investigate the movements of the blood cult, so I will be hosting you this time. Jeagle, who nodded before shifting his gaze to me. And this young warrior is? I immediately bowed and introduced myself, I am Wei Sacheon. As soon as I spoke, the members of the Murim Alliance exchanged puzzled looks. Aren't all members of the Tang family supposed to bear the surname Tang? Hua Yin's cheeks flushed slightly as she softly explained, he is my husband. The group was instantly taken aback. Tang Hua Yin, one of the 3 flowers of the martial world, was already married. Sensing the atmosphere becoming somewhat awkward, Jiggle, who decisively interjected, "Let us head inside first and continue this discussion later." However, as soon as they stepped into the Tang clan, a peculiar buzzing sound reached their ears. The guards of the Murim alliance instinctively looked up, and their expressions changed dramatically. "Everyone, be careful. A swarm of golden-haired king bees is approaching from above." Before the words had fully fallen, the guards swiftly unsheathed their swords and assumed defensive stances. Seeing this, I hurriedly called out, "Calm down. Those golden-haired king bees are venomous creatures I have tamed." However, the guards paid no heed to my words. From their perspective, golden-haired king bees were highly venomous and potentially lethal, leaving no room for carelessness. Seeing the tension escalating, I simply extended my hand, and one of the bees landed affectionately on my palm. Stroking it gently, I smiled and said, "It's been a while, hasn't it? Oh, and remember, you mustn't use your venomous stingers on our guests without reason." This display left the guards utterly dumbfounded. Was there really someone who treated golden-haired king bees as pets? Upon learning of my deeds, Jiggle who became even more astonished. He never expected that the one who had defeated the blood-handed Rakshasa, Ta Kunyang, would be none other than the husband of Hua Yin. At that moment, his gaze was drawn to a scene not far away. 2 warriors were engaged in a heated argument over a venomous creature. Jiggle who asked in confusion, "What are they doing?" I smiled calmly and explained, "They are carrying out the venomous creature companionship punishment." Flashback to a few days ago, while Hua Yin and I were discussing internal energy circulation, several members of the poison division approached us with guilty expressions to report an issue. "Warrior Sacheon, we sincerely apologize. The mice we captured to feed the tiger-striped water snakes, more than half of them have died." I sighed, "That is unavoidable. Mice are naturally wary creatures. If they become stressed, the mother may even kill her own offspring." However, what they said next left me completely stunned. No, that's not it. The warriors took them to eat as drinking snacks. Hua Yin added from the side, "This is a well-known Sichuan delicacy, 3 squeaks, where live baby mice are dipped in sauce before being eaten. Some members of the poison division have rather extreme tastes. To prevent such incidents from happening again, I immediately established the venomous creature companionship punishment in the Tang clan, requiring all offenders to personally care for a venomous creature as a form of warning and discipline." After hearing my explanation, Jiggle whose gaze revealed a newfound respect. He silently marveled, this man truly lived up to his reputation. He was no ordinary figure. Night had fallen. After meeting with the Grand Patriarch, Jiggle who spoke with deep concern, "We currently have very little intelligence on the blood cult. If we allow them to grow unchecked, they will inevitably make a comeback once their strength increases." Hearing this, the Grand Patriarch first set up a chi barrier to prevent any leakage of their conversation. Then, he gestured for me to bring out a certain item. Seeing this, Jiggle who was full of doubt. "What exactly is this that requires such caution?" The Grand Patriarch smiled slightly and explained, "This is an internal energy dissipating poison, a toxin that even the blood cult cannot resist." Hearing this, Jiggle who was instantly shocked. "What? This is an incredible discovery. 30 years ago, the reason we struggled so much in battle was because they used internal energy dissipating poison." The Grand Patriarch nodded. "For martial artists, being poisoned with internal energy dissipating poison causes their internal energy to completely dissipate. However, members of the blood cult remained unaffected." Jiggle who immediately inquired, "Then, just how powerful is this poison?" The Grand Patriarch spoke slowly. "Hua Yin personally witnessed a blood cult elder being poisoned. His physical abilities deteriorated to that of an ordinary person, and in the end, she was able to eliminate him with ease." Hearing this, Jiggle who was visibly excited. With this, the alliance leader can finally breathe a sigh of relief. The Grand Patriarch laughed heartily. "If you want to offer thanks, direct them to Sacheon. He was the one who made this discovery." Jiggle who immediately patted my shoulder. "Young warrior, whatever you desire, just say the word. I am sure the alliance leader will grant you anything you ask for." I thought for a moment before responding seriously, "Could you provide me with some intelligence on venomous creatures?" Jiggle who was momentarily stunned before sighing in amazement, "You truly are an unusual person. Choosing this over martial arts manuals or money. In that case, would you be interested in a mystical stone lizard?" It turned out that the purpose of the Murim Alliance's journey was not only to support the Tang clan but also to undertake another crucial mission, seeking the 100-year snow ginseng, which grew near Mount Gonga in Sichuan. A few days earlier, after conducting research on ancient texts and undertaking field investigations, they had finally pinpointed the exact location of the snow ginseng. Jiggle, who immediately ordered Sacheon to accompany him on the journey to retrieve it. Before long, the two traversed the rugged turtle-shaped rock and waterfalls, eventually discovering a concealed cave entrance within the mountain wall. Exchanging a knowing glance, they cautiously stepped inside. As they ventured deeper into the cave, the sight before them left Sacheon in awe. Who would have thought that within this seemingly ordinary cavern lay a breathtaking scene akin to a celestial paradise? Jiggle, who was equally impressed. Not only was the scenery magnificent, but the moist and cool environment also made it an ideal place for spiritual herbs to thrive. As he surveyed his surroundings, his gaze suddenly sharpened, and he whispered in delight, "This is the 100-year snow ginseng. It is a rare spiritual herb imbued with extreme yin energy. If we can obtain it and exchange it for the Namgung clan's dark fleece flower, Miss Namgung's severed meridians can be healed." However, just as Jiggle, who reached out to pluck the snow ginseng, a dark shadow suddenly darted out from a crevice in the rock, lunging straight for his wrist. Fortunately, Jiggle, who reacted swiftly, using his folding fan to block the sudden attack. The two immediately assumed defensive stances and engaged in combat with the mysterious creature. After a few exchanges, the situation began to stabilize. However, to Jiggle, whose surprise, a thin layer of frost had formed on the surface of his folding fan. Seeing this, he instantly realized the identity of their adversary. It's a lizard. And not just any lizard, but one imbued with an exceptionally dense yin energy, a blue stone lizard. Hearing this, I was astonished. After all, stone lizards with blue coloration were extremely rare in nature. The Grand Patriarch couldn't help but wonder, stone lizards, aren't they supposed to be non-venomous? However, my eyes were already filled with longing, and even a bit of saliva trickled from the corner of my mouth. While the world believed stone lizards to be non-venomous, little did they know that their eyes contained an extraordinarily potent toxin. The next day, Tang returned. Upon learning that the Tang clan had been attacked by the blood cult, he rushed back without hesitation. As soon as he stepped into the hall, he immediately cast a concerned gaze toward me. "Son-in-law, is your body all right?" I smiled slightly, signaling that he need not worry. I just lay in bed for 10 days, with only some scars left on my arm. Yet, Tang was still filled with fury. He slammed the table forcefully and roared, "Those blood cult scoundrels. I will make them pay in blood." However, something suddenly occurred to him, and he quickly turned to Hua Yin, asking anxiously, "Hua Yin, are you all right?" Hua Yin hurriedly reassured him, calming him down while recounting how I had saved everyone. The Grand Patriarch chuckled and added, "That phrase, 'I am your natural enemy,' was delivered with remarkable presence." Hearing this, I felt instantly embarrassed and scratched my head. It was just that my strategy worked, and thanks to everyone's support, I was able to uncover the blood cult's weakness. At that moment, Jiggle, who had remained silent until now, finally smiled and greeted, "Keel-san, I'm here as well." Only then did Tang notice him. He immediately let out a hearty laugh, stepped forward, and patted his shoulder. "Ever since you rose to a high position, we haven't been communicating much." I looked at them with a puzzled expression. Noticing this, Hua Yin whispered beside me. The two of them grew up together as childhood friends. Soon after, Jiggle invited Tang to take a seat, and they began discussing official matters. After hearing the entire course of events, Tang immediately asked, "Has the spy been found?" Seeing my puzzled expression, he continued, "Wasn't the blood cult's invasion this time for the Bloodhand Poison Claw manual? Then, how did they learn that the manual was in the Tang clan?" I was momentarily stunned before realizing, could it be that someone from our own clan leaked information to the blood cult? As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere became subtly tense and heavy. Noticing the change, Jiggle chuckled and teased Tang "You really need to educate your son-in-law. He dares to say anything outright." At that moment, Hua Yin softly explained, "It is impossible for there to be a spy in the Tang clan. Even when selecting a mere servant, we conduct thorough background checks, not only on all their direct relatives but even on their distant cousins." Tang nodded and added, "Moreover, once they are hired, we bring their direct family members to live in the clan. Under such circumstances, who would dare to betray us?" Hearing this, I couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. Truly worthy of a martial aristocratic family, their methods were indeed formidable. Then, who exactly had leaked the information? Jiggle spoke slowly, "It was a servant from the Murim alliance. Only 3 people knew the whereabouts of the manual, and the alliance leader has already captured her." With this revelation, the incident finally became clear, and the Tang clan welcomed a brief moment of peace. However, at that very moment, an unexpected visitor stepped through the gates of the Tang clan. He was none other than Peng Muwan, the head of the Peng clan, who had traveled a great distance. Hua Yin and I immediately went out to greet them as instructed. Seeing this, Peng Muwan burst into hearty laughter. "Isn't this Miss Hua Yin? It's been such a long time since we last met. You were just a little girl back then. My, how you've changed, grown into a real beauty." After a few pleasantries, Peng Muwan turned his gaze to me. Sensing this, I hurriedly bowed. I am Wei Soryang, son-in-law of the Tang clan from Sichuan. Upon hearing this, Peng Muwan fell silent, lost in thought. Then, without warning, he stepped forward to scrutinize me. His fierce and intimidating demeanor sent cold sweat running down my back. Suddenly, as if struck by a thought, Peng Muwan acted without warning. In the blink of an eye, he landed a slap right on my crotch. My face instantly flushed crimson with embarrassment. Peng Muwan, however, grinned with satisfaction. Judging by your looks, I had my doubts. But I see you're quite the man where it counts. Covering her eyes, Huayin offered me an explanation. The Peng clan from Hebei despises etiquette and formalities. This is the patriarch's way of testing you. Hearing this, I quickly composed myself and thanked the patriarch Peng for his compliment. Peng Muwan slapped me heartily on the back. No wonder the Tang clan picked you as their son-in-law. You're nothing like those spoiled heirs from other noble families. At this, Huayin suddenly asked, did the patriarch Peng come all the way from distant Hebei just to help our Tang clan? Peng Muwan's expression turned grave at her words. Did something happen to the Tang clan? The scene shifted. After learning about the Tang clan's plight, Peng Muwan was filled with fury. If only I'd come sooner. At that moment, Tang Keelsan suddenly asked why he had come to the Tang clan in the first place. Only then did Peng Muwan recall his purpose. Actually, I'm here to seek help from the Tang clan. He let out a helpless sigh. Then he called out toward the door. Come in and greet your elders. No sooner had the words left his mouth than a burly man strode in, his face solemn. I stared in bewilderment. He looks like he's well past his youth. But in the next second, a little girl with a lollipop stepped out from behind him. She promptly bowed and introduced herself. Hello, I'm Peng Yingying from the Peng clan. Without hesitation, Peng Muwan pulled her to his side. That's right, this is my daughter. I was utterly stunned. This was nothing short of a genetic miracle. Soon after, Peng Muwan revealed the real reason for his visit. My daughter hasn't been feeling well. Could the Tang clan help me figure out what's wrong? Both Tang Keelsan and I exchanged looks of disbelief. How could such a lively little girl be ill? Night fell. Lying in bed, I was left scratching my head. According to the patriarch Peng Yingying occasionally experienced shortness of breath and developed large red rashes on her body. In severe cases, she would even lose consciousness, only to recover as if nothing had happened some time later. The patriarch Peng had tried every remedy, even consulting the disciples of the medicine sect, but they all insisted the child was perfectly healthy. One of them even made an odd remark, for which the patriarch gave him a beating. That disciple suspected it was poisoning, symptoms caused by someone administering poison. But if that were the case, the most likely culprit would be someone from within the family. Yet Peng Muwan swore up and down that no one in the Peng clan would ever do such a thing. At the time, Jiggle Hu tried to calm him down. We can't jump to conclusions yet. Even if it's poisoning, it may not be deliberate. Tang Keelsan agreed with Jiggle Hu. Right now, the most important thing is to determine whether it's poisoning or a rare illness. But to me, all the signs pointed to juvenile diabetes. What puzzled me, though, was whether diabetes could cause such rashes. If the symptoms were obvious, shouldn't the cause be easy to spot? Just then, there was a sudden knock at the door. I rushed to open it and asked what had happened. Upon learning that Miss Peng had fainted, I hurriedly dressed and rushed over. According to the Peng clan disciple, the young lady had been sitting in the pavilion, coughed once, and then suddenly lost consciousness. Tang Keelsan immediately ruled out one possibility. If she fainted here too, then we can be sure there's no spy inside the Peng clan. Hearing this, Peng Muwan's anger flared. In the next moment, he raised his fist and punched himself square in the face. The blow was so strong it knocked out a tooth. Only then did Peng Muwan manage a satisfied smile. I knew my family couldn't have done it, but I doubted them, even if only for a moment. This is how I atone. Just then, a disciple nearby burst into tears of guilt. We're guilty too. We were right there, and still couldn't stop Miss from fainting. With that, several of them raised their fists and struck their own faces in unison. Seeing chaos about to erupt, I quickly shouted to stop them. Everyone, calm down. I think I've figured out the cause of her symptoms. And there's a way to prove everyone's innocence. But first, I said, I needed to remove Miss Peng's clothes. The crowd was stunned. The patriarch Peng shot me a murderous glare. What did you just say? I stammered, repeating myself. I mean, we should take off Miss Peng Yingying's clothes first. Before I could finish, Peng Muwan grabbed me by the collar. You want to undress my daughter? At this, Tang Keelsan hurried to intercede. Patriarch, please calm down. Our son-in-law must have his reasons. Huayin chimed in support. Father's right. Let's hear what Soryang has to say. At last, Peng Muwan relented. You dare ask to take off my daughter's clothes. I'll hear what your reason is. I quickly explained. By taking off her clothes, I mean changing her into a fresh set. It's possible that something she brought from the Peng clan, her clothes or personal belongings, is causing her to faint. Once the misunderstanding was cleared up, Peng Muwan looked embarrassed. To think that I, Peng Muwan, doubted your words. Again he raised his fist, but I stopped him. Your daughter has fainted. What father wouldn't be in a panic? Peng Muwan immediately thanked me for my understanding. To forgive someone else's mistake so graciously, young hero, you're truly remarkable. I continued, for now, let our Tang clan care for Miss Peng. I'd ask that the Peng clan refrain from seeing her for the time being. If she shows the same symptoms while we're looking after her, then we'll know it's not an issue with her family, but something else. Controlled environmental adjustment. These are often used in raising poisonous insects or amphibians. The creatures know something's wrong, but can't communicate it to their keepers. So changing their environment or the items around them is the best way to track down the cause of illness. What we're using now is this method. Change everything in the environment, and then add things back one by one to find the culprit. Tang Kielsan praised my idea on the spot. It may take some time, but it should be an effective way to find the cause. Peng Muwan, by contrast, was moved to tears. I'll leave my daughter in your hands, then. I pounded my chest with confidence. You can count on me, Master Peng. I've raised all kinds of creatures myself, no way a little girl could stump me. But reality taught me a harsh lesson soon enough. As soon as Miss Peng woke up, she burst into tears. Hua Yin and my mother-in-law went off to get things needed to care for a child, leaving me alone to face the situation. I was at a complete loss. Was she hungry? Did she want to play? Maybe she was this upset because she couldn't see her father. So I resorted to a little white lie. Because you're not feeling well, the patriarch went to get medicine. He'll be back soon. Peng Yingying, however, was quick to protest through her tears. It's because there's no candy. All the candy's gone. Yingying feels so lonely. With that, she wailed even louder. At her words, I suddenly remembered the clothes she'd worn before. Those hidden pockets were all for stashing candy. I comforted her patiently. Miss Peng, you just woke up after fainting, so you can't have any candy for now. Eat a proper meal first, and later I'll make you some candy myself. At this, Peng Yingying stopped crying at once. I'll eat my dinner properly. If I don't, I'll give myself a good hard punch. I was left speechless. What on earth were the Peng clan teaching their children? A few more days passed just like that. Peng Muwan was sneaking glances at the scene not far away. Because of the agreement we'd made earlier, even as her father, seeing his daughter had become a rare luxury for him. But he was caught red-handed by me. Master Peng, what are you doing here? As soon as I spoke, Peng Muwan yanked me into the bushes. How has Yingying been lately? After hearing my reply, his face was full of disbelief. You're saying she's well-behaved now, eats her meals properly, and even does things for herself? Just then, a voice suddenly interrupted the two of us. It was Hua Yin. Greetings, Master Peng. With that, she turned her gaze to me. Miss Yingying keeps asking where Brother Sacheon has gone. Hearing this, Peng Muwan was instantly consumed with jealousy. Yingying's never been that way with me. You brat, when did you get so close to her? Sensing the situation turning awkward, I immediately chose to flee, leaving Peng Muwan standing there, saddened. Before long, I finally found Peng Yingying. She was happily playing with the golden-haired king bees. Thanks to these little fellows, I'd been able to get close to Yingying so quickly. The adorable golden-haired king bee seemed especially fond of her, too. Maybe it was because she always got syrup all over herself when eating candy. In any case, since Yingying knew the bee kings liked her, she insisted on going to play with them every day. After a little playtime, she would return home more obedient than ever. It was a win-win for everyone. So, maybe parenting wasn't so hard after all. But just then, Yingying's voice rang out, Brother Sacheon, there are bees over there too. I quickly warned her to be careful, but I was too late. By the time I ran over, I saw she'd already been stung, a large bump swelling up on her arm. I immediately reassured her not to worry. While bee venom can be uncomfortable, a little ointment would fix her right up. But even as I said this, I sensed something was wrong. Yingying suddenly grew listless, struggling to breathe. The next second, she collapsed in my arms. Combining the Patriarch Peng's earlier descriptions with what I was witnessing now, I was certain of my conclusion. Yes, this was anaphylactic shock. Anaphylactic shock is a severe allergic reaction caused by an overactive immune response. Normally, when harmful substances or toxins enter the body, the immune system mobilizes to fight them. Histamine is released, blood vessels dilate, allowing white blood cells and antibodies to flood in and destroy the invaders. But for some people, certain substances trigger an extreme response. Overproduction or malfunction of histamine causes widespread blood vessel dilation and increased capillary permeability, dropping blood pressure, leading to symptoms like difficulty breathing and itching, and in severe cases, threatening life itself. By then, I'd already carried Yingying to the main hall. After calling out to my father-in-law and Peng Muwan, I immediately explained the current situation. Peng Muwan rushed to channel his internal energy into Ying. Seeing her condition improve, I let out a long sigh of relief. Internal energy cultivation really was remarkable. The key to treating anaphylactic shock is keeping blood pressure up and the airway open, usually with adrenaline, steroids, and antihistamines, sometimes intubation for breathing. But in this world, resolving everything with qi truly was amazing. Just then, Tang Kiel-san spoke up. The symptoms are the same as before. Can we confirm now why Ying fainted? I gave a definite answer. Miss Ying fainted after being stung by a bee. Both men were taken aback by this. While bee stings can cause such reactions, that hadn't seemed to be the cause of Miss Peng's earlier collapses. Peng Muwan agreed. If she'd been stung, she wouldn't have made it back here. So there's still no clear connection. I shook my head, eager to refute this. Actually, I had already figured it out. It was precisely because of the bee sting that I found the cause. But before explaining, I needed to take off Miss Peng's clothes again. Soon, after Hua Yin carefully examined her, she confirmed my suspicion. Though the spots on her body made it hard to tell, there was a fresh wound on her back. Hearing this, Peng Muwan first apologized for his earlier rashness, then asked what had caused Ying's previous fainting spells. But when I told him it was bee venom poisoning, Peng Muwan was perplexed. Didn't Patriarch Tang just say it wasn't bee venom? Besides, if she'd been stung, we would have noticed. There are no flowers in the Peng clan courtyard, the ground is paved with stone, and bees couldn't even get in. I agreed with his reasoning, then fell into thought. But the truth was, Ying's symptoms were classic anaphylactic shock from bee venom. And this wasn't an ordinary bee, it was venom with peptides that could cause swelling and breathing difficulty. If we're talking about the Hebei region of China, with its temperate continental climate, the local venomous creatures include the white-lipped pit viper, Chinese cobra, Chinese scorpion, red-chested ant, and Chinese red ant. Eliminate snakes and scorpions, factor in the frequent stings and Ying's usual habits, and it all came back to that hidden pocket. The secret pouch stuffed full of candies. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but smile. We all know in the Tang clan that venom affects different people in different ways. For some, a single drop can be fatal, for others, even 10 times the dose does nothing. Ying just happens to be hypersensitive to bee venom. If she wasn't stung at home, there's only one explanation left. It was a bee, but not an ordinary one. Night fell. After patiently setting a trap, the culprit finally took the bait. Peng Muwan was astonished. Isn't that an ant? Ants aren't bees. I explained that this was the bee's close cousin and the true culprit behind Ying's collapse. Because it has a stinger on its rear, it's also called the king stinger ant. The king stinger ant is a member of the Hymenoptera order, family Formicidae. The name alone might puzzle some. How could ants have stingers? In fact, these stinging ants evolved from a common ancestor with wasps, and still retain many wasp-like traits. So, in academic papers comparing stinging ants and wasps, there are findings showing that patients who experience anaphylactic shock from stinger ant venom will also react to wasp venom. In short, they were probably drawn in while hunting for prey wrapped around the mulberry branches, and accidentally stung Ying. The marks they left resembled spots, so when Ying later woke up, everyone assumed they were just ordinary rashes. Peng Muwan was astounded. Who would have thought such a trivial venomous insect would be the cause of Ying's collapse? So, could Patriarch Tang make an antidote? Tang Kiel-san was helpless. There are antidotes for bee venom, but in cases like Miss Ying's, where she's allergic, the antidote won't help much. At this, Peng Muwan let out a long sigh. But at least we found the cause, so now we can prevent it in advance. I really must thank you, young warrior. I assured him it was nothing to worry about, and told him there was actually an effective treatment for Ying. It's called desensitization therapy. By injecting small amounts of bee venom into Ying over time, her allergic sensitivity would gradually decrease. Of course, this takes time, but after recovery, she'd never faint from bee venom again. Hearing this, Peng Muwan broke into a broad grin. A favor like saving my daughter's life can't go unrewarded. Young warrior, state your wish. Whatever you desire, I'll grant it. I immediately declined, saying Ying was like a little sister to me. How could I accept a reward? Peng Muwan just burst out laughing and gave me a hearty slap on the back. We people of Murim aren't bound by formalities. If you can't think of anything you want right now? At that, I suddenly remembered something. How about joining me for a trip to a famous mountain? So the next day, I led everyone to Mount Gongga in Sichuan. As we marveled at the breathtaking scenery, a troublesome question lingered in my mind. How were we supposed to reach the cave the general had mentioned? But Peng Muwan came up with an idea. You've only just started learning mobility arts, so you probably don't know the secret of wave-stepping swallow flight. With that, he grabbed me by the collar, and in the next instant, hurled me forward like a rock. Just like that, once Peng Muwan and Hua Yin had arrived as well, we headed deeper into the cave. But what struck me as odd was that the cave's interior was nothing like what we'd expected. According to Jeagle's own description, a waterfall of light was supposed to cascade down the center of the cave, with the ground covered in unknown blossoms. The whole scene was supposed to be mysterious and otherworldly, like a fairyland. While there really was light streaming from the top of the cave, all the flowers were withered. Just then, Peng Muwan noticed something. A strange chill was emanating from a pile of rocks not far away. He immediately drew his broadsword, ready for battle. What monster lurks there? Show yourself now. No sooner had he spoken than a terrifying roar echoed through the cave. But to my ears, it was oddly pleasant. What's more, to my delight, a fat-tailed gecko crawled out from the cracks between the rocks. It was about 30 centimeters long, with big round yellow eyes and a chubby little tail. Heavens, it was just too adorable. Peng Muwan, however, looked grave. Because there wasn't just one, there was another one hiding inside. My heart nearly leapt with joy. Now they could even breed. But when I got a clear look at the situation inside, my expression darkened. Something was wrong. It didn't seem to be breathing. I immediately decided we should retreat for now, instructing Gu Pei to hide in the shadows and observe their every move in secret. The reason for this caution was simple. We knew nothing about the creature's habits, and rushing in could endanger the injured one. But even after several days, there was still no movement from them, not even the slightest shift. Peng Muwan was baffled. Living things have to eat, don't they? I fell into deep thought as well. Ordinary geckos or lizards, when stressed, can go without eating for days, especially fat-tailed geckos, which store energy in their thick tails. If they weren't eating, they were probably surviving on stored reserves. But given the current circumstances, I felt uneasy. I needed to check on the unmoving one. At the very least, I had to figure out what was wrong. Maybe after an exam, hunger would prompt it to eat. So, Master Peng, could you help lure out the healthy one? Hearing this, Peng Muwan and his men flexed their huge biceps. Why not just knock it out? That way we catch both the healthy and the injured one. I replied a little awkwardly that if Master Peng made a move, even the top experts in Jeagle's army would be dead on the spot. Why not hear my plan instead? First, I'd have Master Peng lure the healthy gecko away. Meanwhile, Hua Yin and I would examine the injured one, with the Venom Squad blocking our retreat just in case. I made sure to remind everyone, don't injure it, and don't let it get close to the walls, or it might climb over to us. Peng Muwan pounded his chest, promising to carry out the task flawlessly. But as I watched him leave, I still felt uneasy. Please, Master Peng, be gentle. Moments later, we all re-entered the cave according to plan. The fat-tailed gecko immediately readied itself for battle. Without a word, Peng Muwan led his team forward in a charge. As offense and defense clashed, Peng Muwan seemed exhilarated. Not bad. You're all on par with my Peng clan's elite warriors. After several rounds, even though the fat-tailed gecko was nimble, it was soon surrounded by sheer numbers. Seeing this, Hua Yin and I quietly slipped into action. When I got a good look at the injured one, I was startled. It was suffering from a shedding disorder, which had led to pus in the eyes and necrosis at the tip of its tail. Emergency treatment was needed, and fast. Hua Yin was puzzled. But there's no medicine or equipment here. I smiled faintly. Just peel off the whole shed skin. Hearing this, Hua Yin shot me a disdainful look. Sacheon, you've really gotten into stripping things lately, haven't you? Just then, the fat-tailed gecko suddenly stood up warily. I quickly soothed it in a low voice. Luckily, like the queen bee, it could understand human speech. I got to work. Like snakes, these creatures shed their skin, though they usually eat the shed skin, so it's rarely seen. But to my surprise, the gecko's skin was incredibly tough. I pulled out my knife to help. When the fresh new skin appeared, Hua Yin was amazed. It gleamed like a precious gem. I, on the other hand, was a little regretful. In my previous life, museum grade, complete shed skins like this were worth a fortune. Before long, only the head and tail remained to be shed. Although the failed shedding had caused an eye infection, thankfully, in the end, the process was completed smoothly. Hua Yin was delighted at the result, but I was troubled by the necrotic skin on the tail. To stop the spread, it would need to be amputated. But in its current state, a rash amputation could be fatal. Just then, a sudden noise sounded behind us. It turned out that the healthy fat-tailed gecko had broken free from the encirclement. I quickly motioned for it to calm down. But when I noticed the knife in my hand, I had a bad feeling. The fat-tailed gecko's roar echoed through the cave, and in the next instant, it launched a fierce attack without hesitation. Fortunately, Hua Yin reacted quickly, allowing me to dodge that powerful strike unscathed. I hurried to explain that things weren't as they seemed. But the healthy gecko had no intention of backing off. Yet, after a few sharp hisses, it calmed down at once, even showing what looked like a happy expression. At that moment, Peng Muwan and his group rushed over. Young warrior, are you alright? This little fellow is quick, it actually slipped right between our legs a moment ago. With tensions high, I quickly stood up and urged everyone to back off. I'm fine. Master Peng, please have everyone step back. I'd like to try communicating with it. Peng Muwan looked puzzled. Could it really understand human speech? I nodded. As long as we don't provoke it, it shouldn't attack us again. Then I turned to Hua Yin, asking her to fetch some dry grass. A little while later, with the fat-tailed gecko lying on the bedding, I spoke gently. Don't be afraid, we won't hurt you. I've already helped you shed the stuck skin and cleared the discharge from your eyes. If you keep licking your eyes over the next few days, you'll recover. But there was still the most serious problem. Half its tail had rotted away. So, for your own life, I'm afraid we need to amputate your tail. At these words, the healthy gecko immediately let out an angry roar. In the next second, it attacked again, without a moment's hesitation. Afterwards, as I smeared wound ointment on myself, I couldn't help but grumble, what an ungrateful little beast. Peng Muwan burst out laughing at the sight. Now you've finally got some manly scars to show for it, battle wounds, after all. But before he finished, Hua Yin shot him a chilly glare. I quickly changed the subject. At least the misunderstanding has been cleared up, and judging by how calm the three little ones are, this gecko never really intended to hurt me. As I spoke, the gecko suddenly approached me. Realizing it genuinely wanted help, I asked it a question. Can you tell me what you usually eat? If we're going to amputate the tail, you'll need extra nutrition. Hearing this, the gecko immediately ran off. Moments later, it returned with a plant in its mouth. After Hua Yin carefully examined it, she confirmed it was a seed of a spiritual herb native to this cave. Peng Muwan chimed in, recalling some rumors. They say wherever spiritual creatures dwell, spirit grass will grow. Do you think these little ones, like blue spot centipedes, survive by absorbing the essence of spirit grass? At these words, a sense of dread washed over me. If we dug up the spirit grass, wouldn't that be a huge disaster? I rushed to replant the spirit grass immediately. But Peng Muwan sighed. It's useless. Spirit grass touched by human hands rarely takes root again. It must have dug it up on its own, knowing this fact. Suddenly, everything made sense. The desolation in the cave now was undoubtedly the result of humans overharvesting. Thinking of this, tears of guilt welled in my eyes. Humans really owe you little ones an apology. At that moment, Peng Muwan spoke again. By the way, what's this spirit grass called? After learning from Gu Pei that it was frost ginseng, my heart filled with hope. If that's the case, could we perhaps find something with a similar cold aura as a substitute? Peng Muwan grinned. If that's what you need, I do know of something. It's called ice jade. Like frost ginseng, it contains an intense, frigid spiritual energy. But the trouble is, ice jade is extremely rare. Even with money, you might not be able to buy it. At the mention of ice jade, Hua Yin suddenly spoke up. I actually know a collector. She hesitated a moment before continuing, but, how do I put this? She's another flower. She's one of the 3 flowers of Murim, the Flame Queen Peony, and the beloved daughter of the Namgung clan, Namgung Seol. She owns a large cache of ice jade, but I've heard she doesn't really need it. Before I could dwell on this pleasant surprise, the healthy gecko suddenly ran over, chattering anxiously. From its urgency, I understood what it wanted. It was asking us to hurry and treat the injured gecko. But Hua Yin was puzzled. Couldn't these creatures just shed their own tails? I confirmed her theory, but explained that not all species can do so. Tail shedding is called autotomy, and the ability varies by species. Some can shed but not regenerate, some can do both, and some can do neither. Those need outside help. But they all have a specific breaking point, called the detachment segment. All I had to do was find the detachment segment and pinch it off with my fingers. With careful maneuvering, I finally helped the gecko complete its tail shedding. The healthy gecko wept tears of joy at the sight, and Peng Muwan looked at me with newfound respect. The more I see of this young man, the more remarkable he seems. And so, after several more days of post-surgical observation, seeing that the fat-tailed gecko was showing no abnormalities, Hua Yin and I felt at ease enough to bid them a final farewell. Of course, this wasn't really goodbye forever, but just a trip to find the food they needed during their recovery. Soon after we returned to Tang sect, Tang Keelsan summoned Hua Yin and me at once, bringing us truly explosive news, something about the blood cult. After Murim Alliance's undercover agent was exposed, the Alliance leader sent people to follow the owl he raised, and they finally discovered the blood cult's main base. Just in time, General Jeagle who returned, and, using the method you shared, wiped them out in one fell swoop. So, to thank you for your great service, the Alliance leader wrote a letter of gratitude and had it delivered in person. Relief and pride washed over me, but Tang Keelsan quickly remembered the fat-tailed gecko. So, did you bring one back? I'm really curious to see what it looks like. Seeing my hesitation, Hua Yin stepped in to explain the whole story, then asked her father if she could accompany me to Anhui province to visit the Namgung clan. Tang Keelsan immediately agreed, but also assigned us another important task. I couldn't help but sigh. Wasn't this just an excuse to make us run errands? Just then, Tang Kielsan seemed to recall something, his expression suddenly tinged with worry. Speaking of the Namgung clan, there have been some troubling rumors lately. The scene shifted to somewhere near Yellow Mountain, close to the Namgung clan. One man was questioning in disbelief whether the rumors were true. Another was eager to confirm. I heard it's about the eldest miss of the Namgung clan. Before he could finish, the first man cut him off. Don't talk nonsense. Even if it's true, what of it? But at that moment, a flash of terror crossed the other's face. Not far away, a man was lying motionless on the ground. When the two rushed to help him up, they found his face battered and bruised, yet he wore the dazed look of someone tipsy from drink. Even stranger, a string of lecherous giggles kept escaping his lips. The two men were utterly baffled, but decided in the end to carry him back to the village first. They had barely left when the figure of a woman appeared nearby. This is just too amusing. Not far off, a woman in a wide-brimmed hat was practicing swordsmanship with utter focus. Suddenly, a voice called out to stop her. "Sister, that's enough. If you keep at it, someone is bound to notice. Sword practice is good, but you have greater responsibilities. You must take care of your health above all." That woman was none other than the Flame Queen Peony, Namgung Seol. But as the eldest miss of the Namgung clan, she possessed an exceedingly rare overflowing Qi meridian constitution. At first, her whole family believed it was a blessing from heaven. Her meridians flowed unimpeded, her inner power cultivation was astonishingly fast, her Qi moved without the slightest resistance. But unfortunately, the very openness of her meridians caused her innate Qi to deplete at an alarming rate. To slow this loss and prolong her life, she would have to find a source of Yin energy even purer than her own. Now, exhausted, Namgung Seol was panting for breath. But when she saw the oil lamp guttering, almost spent, a wave of sorrow swept through her heart. She would have to hurry, before her life ran out. She must at least master the Emperor's sword style. The scene shifted again. Hua Yin and I were finally on our way to the Namgung clan. But before that, we had to complete a task Tang Kielsan had given us. First, deliver the antidote I'd developed to Murim Alliance in Wuhan. But honestly, what I cared about more was whether the Namgung clan would so easily part with something as precious as ice jade. Hua Yin assured me I needn't worry. Miss Namgung Seol had no use for ice jade at all, what she truly needed was something edible. Besides, we had a trade prepared, so everything would work out. But I was still puzzled, what exactly was the Yin energy contained in ice jade? Hua Yin explained at once. Yin energy is the force that gives rise to Yin. Fire, cold, fear, and darkness are all manifestations of Yin energy. It not only has a sinking and gathering quality, but also suppresses biological activity. I was both surprised and confused. Didn't that make ice jade a harmful thing? Hua Yin hurried to clarify. If Yang energy is too strong, it actually accelerates the depletion of life. So for any living being, what matters is restoring what's lacking, only then can one thrive. I pressed on. Yin and Yang balance, shouldn't it be like the union of male and female? But the fat-tailed gecko only has Yin energy, so how does it achieve balance? At this, Hua Yin blushed deeply. That? I'll check on that for you another time. A short while later, our boat finally docked, and General Jeagle who had already sent someone to welcome us. Soon, under our guide's escort, we arrived at Murim Alliance headquarters. Just then, the sound of an argument caught my attention. A woman was scolding a man, tugging on his ear. As the spear dragon, how can you draw your sword against a fellow ally? The slaying dragon beside her agreed. Sword Phoenix is right. You never confirmed what those people said before you acted, you're far too rash. At that, all three suddenly noticed Hua Yin, and Spear Dragon immediately stepped up to greet her. Watching the smooth, confident exchange, I couldn't help but marvel. In Murim, only those of extraordinary talent earn the titles of Dragon or Phoenix. It seemed these three were truly the elite of the elite. Then Sword Phoenix voiced her suspicions. Lately I've heard some strange rumors about Miss Hua Yin. Is it true you have a sweetheart? Before Hua Yin could reply, Spear Dragon jumped in. Everyone's talking about it. To defend Miss Hua Yin's reputation, I ought to challenge those rumormongers to a duel. I mean no offense, but as a sparring friend, it's my duty to defend the lady's name. Hua Yin immediately denied the rumor's truth, then pulled me to her side. He's not my sweetheart, he's my fiancé. All three of them were stunned. I hurried forward to introduce myself. Nice to meet you all. My name is Wei Soryong. I'm happy to make your acquaintance. But no sooner had I spoken than Spear Dragon's face darkened. What did you say your name was? When he heard Wei Soryong again, Spear Dragon instantly assumed a fighting stance. I am Yang Xianggu, the Spear Dragon FO, the Yang family of Sichuan. Today, I've come to test your skills. I was at a loss. Why did these strange people always want to fight the moment we met? Suddenly, a stern voice rang out. Spear Dragon, what do you think you're doing to our guest? It was General Jeagle who. Everyone bowed at once. but in the next moment, Jeagle who rapped Spear Dragon on the head with his folding fan. After scolding Spear Dragon thoroughly, he turned to me with a slightly apologetic smile. "Young Masterway, please forgive the offense. The Alliance leader has been waiting for you, let's head to the Heavenly Martial Pavilion." As the group left, Spear Dragon's face was still flushed with anger. "Wei Sacheon, this isn't over." Soon after meeting the Alliance leader of Murim, I introduced myself without delay. The Alliance leader expressed his gratitude for Tang sect's righteous deeds. No sooner had he spoken than a look of surprise flashed across his face. "Those little creatures on your wrist and waist, they don't bite at random, do they?" I hurried to deny it. As expected of one of the top 3 masters in Murim, he had seen through the blue spot centipedes on me at a glance. After a few pleasantries, we sat down to discuss serious matters. When they learned I had brought 3 bottles of poison this time, Jeagle who immediately offered his thanks. At the same time, the Alliance leader said he wished to reward me for my contribution in the blood cult incident. I was confused, I'd already mentioned my own request. But Jeagle who insisted that what I'd asked was far from enough. That made me uneasy. Those things were just chance acquisitions in the course of saving my friends, the agreed reward was more than enough. At this, the Alliance leader seemed to understand. "I see now, no wonder you feel so familiar. Young Masterway, you and I have much in common. Years ago, I lost my family to the blood cult. At the time, I fought with all I had to save my last loved one, and in that desperate moment, I found the true essence of martial arts. You risked your life, even poisoned, to kill the blood cult elder for the sake of the Tang clan. Isn't that just like me 30 years ago?" As he spoke, he stepped over to me and patted my shoulder with heartfelt approval. "I'd like to pass on to you my secret art, Iron Coffer technique." I was utterly stunned, even Jeagle who could hardly believe it. After all, this technique had never had a successor. So it was that, after receiving the Iron Coffer technique manual, Jeagle who hurriedly warned me, "Never let word of this get out, or it could bring trouble." That night, as I was returning to my room, a voice suddenly called from behind. I turned to see Spear Dragon staring at me, his face clouded with anger. "Young Masterway, I've been waiting for you. If you want to be worthy of the poisonous flower, you'll have to prove yourself against me." I protested that this was too dangerous, but he waved off my concern, even boasting he wouldn't use weapons. I quickly clarified, "I meant I was worried for your safety." At that, Spear Dragon was instantly enraged, storming up to grab my collar. "You arrogant fool, you really don't know your place." But before he could finish, he sensed something amiss. And before he could react, the 3 little creatures viciously pounced on him. I managed to hold them back in time, but the scare left Spear Dragon drenched in cold sweat. After calming the 3 little ones, I turned to Spear Dragon. "I did warn you it was dangerous, didn't I? Let's just say I saved your life tonight." Spear Dragon, still shaken, realized I wasn't joking. If he hadn't stopped those poisonous creatures in time, I really wouldn't have made it out alive. Just then, a frosty voice cut in. "What's going on here? Spear Dragon, are you picking on Sacheon again?" I quickly explained it was all a misunderstanding. I got lost after leaving Heavenly Martial Pavilion and ran into Spear Dragon, who offered to lead the way. But Hua-Yin was still suspicious. "Then why do them look so agitated?" I improvised. Spear Dragon was just curious and poked them, so they got startled. Spear Dragon immediately backed up my story. "I only meant it as a joke, I didn't think they'd react like that." After a brief silence, Hua-Yin thanked Spear Dragon. Watching the 2 of them walk away, Spear Dragon finally let out a long sigh of relief. That was almost a disaster. The next morning, after saying farewell to the others, Spear Dragon suddenly stopped me, looking embarrassed. "Thank you for saving me last night, young Masterway. Seeing your generosity, I finally understand. You really are worthy of the poisonous flower." With the misunderstanding resolved, Hua-Yin and I set out for the Namgung clan. A few days later, we finally arrived at a small town at the foot of Yellow Mountain. Because of the treacherous terrain and the late hour, we decided to rest at a nearby inn for the night. When Hua-Yin learned I'd received the Alliance leader's secret art, she was astonished. After all, it was a technique said to rival the Shaolin's diamond indestructible divine art, supposedly impervious to blades and even inner force attacks once mastered. Plus, it was hardly influenced by internal cultivation methods, making it especially suitable for me. I was amazed, so if I master it, I'll basically gain bulletproof defense. What a stroke of fortune. Then Hua-Yin added, "They say the Alliance leader used to whip himself every morning to toughen his skin for this skill. I could help you with that." That startled me so much my face flushed red. Whipping, that sounded way too intense. Just then, the innkeeper's voice interrupted my reverie. "Are you headed to the Namgung clan up on Yellow Mountain?" When we confirmed it, the innkeeper immediately offered a warning. "To tell the truth, these last 2 months many climbers have gone missing. Though they were later found, all of them had lost their yang energy." While I was shocked, Hua-Yin was simply puzzled. Strange as it is, what does any of this have to do with the Namgung clan? The innkeeper hesitated awkwardly. According to those who woke up, the woman they spent the night with was none other than Miss Namgung Seol herself. At this, Hua Yin immediately objected. That's utter nonsense, she's being framed. Meanwhile, at the Namgung clan, a servant girl rushed into Namgung Seol's room. Learning her father needed her urgently, she hurried to the main hall, uneasy. Did father find out I've been secretly practicing swordsmanship at night? But when she arrived, she saw several men trembling on their knees before her father. After calling Namgung Seol forward, the Namgung patriarch barked, "Raise your head and look closely. Was it really my daughter you saw?" Seeing their hesitant looks, the patriarch pressed Namgung Seol directly. "Have you been up on Yellow Mountain at night lately? These men claim you drained their yang energy." Namgung Seol was startled, but quickly denied it. "I've only been practicing sword in the valley these last few days." Hearing this, the patriarch's confidence returned, and he sternly demanded real evidence from the men. One of them suddenly recalled something. That woman had a mole on her chest. As he spoke, he pulled down his collar to point out the spot. When he saw his daughter's look of utter disbelief, the Namgung patriarch flew into a rage. "Namgung Seol, is all this true?